A brilliant engineer worked himself to death. But when he opened his eyes again, he had become a young lord in a world ruled by magic. The world was trapped in an age of swords and spells. He saw the blueprint for an empire. Everyone believed magic was unbeatable. But with a mysterious system and knowledge centuries ahead of this era, he would crush every enemy, reshape an entire civilization, and build the most powerful industrial empire this world had ever seen. His story begins in a sterile, our protagonist, a brilliant engineer, lies on the brink of death. After a lifetime of suffering, orphaned at birth and trapped in a corporate nightmare for 20 years, he's had enough. His body is failing, and he finally decides to stop fighting the inevitable. He drifts into the silent darkness while medical staff desperately try to pull him back to reality. But for him, death isn't the end, it is a gateway. When he finally forced his heavy eyes open, the cold hospital walls were gone. In their place, a room dripping with unimaginable luxury, filled with golden treasures that dazzled his senses. Panic hits. He fears the medical bills for such a suite will bankrupt him forever. But then, reality shatters. A glowing status window appears in thin air, welcoming him to the magical continent of Eldria. The confusion is overwhelming, until he catches his reflection and realizes everything has changed. The man in the mirror is a stranger youthful with striking blonde hair. A week reveals the truth. He's reincarnated as Ryan Edgar, the third son of a Grand Duke. Gone is the worthless loser. Now, he's a pampered noble in a world powered by magic. Life here is a paradise filled with love he never dared to dream of. Eldria is a vast world, home to humans, elves, and dwarves. Ryan's family holds immense power, controlling a territory spanning 300,000 kilometers, supported by 1 million subjects. This sweet life is the perfect remedy for his past. His luxury is interrupted by a royal summons. Called to his father's chambers, Ryan bows with humility. Sensing that his sheltered existence is about to face a monumental, life-changing shift, his father gets straight to the point. It's time for Ryan to manage his own territory. Ryan, his stunned governance never crossed his mind. The Duke walks to a massive map, pointing to a rugged region in the northwest full of hidden challenges. The region faces a brutal crisis: food production. His father warns that while borders are secure, the Kurdral Empire is decaying from political corruption. Factions clash, and the future is bleak. Ryan realizes his father is handing him a battlefield. Ryan feels a burning urge to protect this family that showed him such care. His father, misreading the silence, offers him a way out, fearing it's too much pressure. But Ryan isn't backing down. He asks, will the region thrive if we solve the food crisis? The Duke remains skeptical, believing that food shortages are systemic issues that no amount of youthful passion can solve. He sees Ryan as an inexperienced child. Little does he know, Ryan carries more than just passion. He carries the revolutionary wisdom of a century of mechanical engineering and industrial progress. With a sharp, confident smile, Ryan tells his father to leave the food production to him. He is ready to transform the desolate Iceling city, the westernmost edge of their territory. The game has changed. Using the knowledge of his past life, Ryan Edgar is about to ignite an industrial revolution in this magical land. Iceling city sits at a dangerous crossroads, bordered by elves to the west and the ocean to the south. Once fertile, endless wars have turned this land into a barren wasteland. Ryan studies the reports, realizing that to ignite his industrial revolution, he needs one thing above all else: a massive, skilled labor force. But his new power offers more than just strategy. He discovers all system scan ability, allowing him to visualize the stats and hidden talents of anyone he encounters. It's a game changer. He's no longer just a noble. He's an evaluator of potential, determined to hunt for talent the moment he arrives. Accompanying him is Leah, a fierce, red-headed maid tasked by his father to keep him out of trouble. She's worried about his reckless streak, but Ryan is already mentally miles ahead. In the city, the corrupt local lords are plotting, planning to bury him under mountains of falsified financial records. The city lord and his masked conspirator are confident. They assume Ryan is just another pampered, oblivious noble who won't know the first thing about tax fraud. They decide to feed him fake accounts to keep him confused and distracted, unaware that they are playing against a modern-era genius. The masked man has a deep, bitter grudge against the Duke and is desperate to use Ryan as a pawn to inflict pain on his father, shortly after the carriage reaches the outskirts. Ryan steps out, looking at the desolate fields, already seeing the blueprint for a canal that could revolutionize their trade. His thoughts are shattered by a piercing scream. A young girl is desperately begging her father to stop gambling away her mother's life-saving medical money. The man, consumed by greed and stupidity, raises a hand to strike her. Ryan doesn't hesitate. He steps forward and delivers a lightning-fast, brutal punch. Leah is shocked, scolding him for charging into a fight without his gear. Ryan calmly defends his impulse, then turns his gaze to the cowardly scum of a father. He delivers a cold, bone-chilling ultimatum. If he ever catches him near a gambling den again, he'll lose his hands. The gambler flees in terror, leaving the girl sobbing on the ground. Ryan kneels down, using his system to check her status. What he sees leaves him stunned. Her name is Lillian, and she possesses a rare, hidden talent for agriculture and harvesting. She isn't just a child, she is a golden asset. Even with low combat stats, her potential for farming is off the charts. To Ryan, she is a blessing in disguise. He immediately offers her a ride in his carriage, ignoring her protests about her dirty clothes. To him, status means nothing. She is a crucial piece in his development plan. As they settle in, Ryan asks the million-dollar question: why does this city have a thriving gambling den when its people are starving in extreme poverty? Lillian's answer is chilling, revealing that the neighboring Grand Duke of Soren has been pulling the strings behind the scenes to keep this land weak. Ryan's eyes narrow as the pieces fall into place. The corruption isn't just local. It's an orchestrated effort to keep his territory broken. The masked conspirators, the rigged accounts, the poverty, it's all a trap. But they have made a grave mistake. They have targeted a man who knows exactly how to build from ruins. With a brilliant tactician like Ryan at the helm, the tides are about to turn. He has the system, he has the vision, and now he's starting to assemble his team. The corrupt lords think they are welcoming a victim, but in reality, they have just invited their own destruction. Disaster strikes as a massive flood destroys the land and crops, pushing citizens to the brink of starvation. Ryan realizes his plan to rebuild requires a massive census, but first, he needs capital. He turns to Lillian, asking for the location of the local lord's estate, hoping to secure emergency development funds. Their journey is violently interrupted. A horseman screams at the crowd, calling them peasants as he recklessly charges through the streets. He nearly crushes Ryan, but Leah saves him just in time. Ryan, sensing the tension, tells her to release him, while learning that the rider is the young master of the Edwin family. The Edwin family owns every casino in the city, which is Ryan's eureka moment. If they are hoarding all the wealth while the citizens starve, they are the perfect target to fund his revolution. Instead of the estate, he changes course. They are going to the casino to drain the Edwin's coffers dry. Lillian is terrified, warning that the casino will leave him penniless. Ryan just smiles. He is confident they cannot outplay him. As they enter the den of vice, Ryan is disgusted by the sight of desperate people throwing away their lives. He ignores the small fries, waiting for the big fish to appear. He approaches an attendant, feigning ignorance, and is handed to free chips to try his luck. He throws them down, losing instantly, just as the casino crew planned. But when he tries to leave, the attendant blocks his path, claiming he owes a massive debt for the chips he was told were on the house. The scam is blatant. The attendant claims each chip is worth 100 gold coins, demanding 250 total. When Ryan refuses, the attendant insults him and suggests leaving his maid as payment. The air turns icy. Lillian shouts that the chips are actually worth only a single silver coin. The attendant loses his cool and orders his guards to beat Lillian, but he never gets the chance. Ryan steps in slang across the room with a devastating punch. The floor erupts in chaos, but Ryan stands perfectly calm, his gaze scanning the crowd, waiting for the real master of the house. The violence draws out the big fish. A man of status steps into the light, furious at the disruption. Ryan doesn't look intimidated. He looks like a predator who finally found his prey. He isn't here to play games. He is here to dismantle this corrupt, gambling empire from the ground up. The room goes silent as the casino boss confronts Ryan. The lord of the city believes he holds all the cards, but Ryan has already scanned his status. He knows exactly how much power this man has, and he is ready to crush the Edwin family's entire financial operation using his modern economic logic. Ryan challenges the boss, daring him to keep playing. The boss, blinded by arrogance, assumes Ryan is just a reckless brat. He doesn't realize he is facing an engineer who spent 20 years analyzing systems both mechanical and corporate. Ryan is about to teach them the true meaning of a bankrupting move. The crowd watches, terrified yet hopeful, as Ryan prepares to bet against the very institution that has been bleeding them dry. He isn't just playing for gold. He is playing for the future of Iceland City. Every chip he puts on the table is a building block for his future industrial empire. With the system guiding his every move and his brilliant mind calculating the odds, Ryan is invincible. The Edwin family's control over the city is about to crumble. The trap is set, the bait is taken, and Ryan Edgar is ready to claim his prize. The revolution begins at the gambling table. Vescello orders his thugs to brutalize the gamblers for causing a scene. Lillian, watching in horror, blames herself for bringing Ryan here. But she remembers his kindness and decides she's had enough. She steps into the line of fire, boldly shouting that she won't stand by and watch them scam her hero. The crowd freezes. Everyone knows that crossing Vescello is a death sentence. Vescello sneers, mockingly asking if she's truly challenging him. Lillian doesn't flinch, accusing him of ruining countless lives. She stands her ground, ready to take the blow to protect the man who showed her a flicker of hope. As Vescello lunges, Ryan intercepts him with effortless precision. He scans the thug's status, finding pathetic loyalty and attributes defined only by bloodlust. Vescello arrogantly asks if Ryan is displeased with his methods. Ryan just grins, agreeing that in this world only the strong deserve to make the final laugh. Vescello laughs, thinking it's a joke, but his amusement dies instantly. Ryan claps his hands and soldiers flood the casino, surrounding the entire room. Ryan stands tall, his men locked and loaded behind him. The shift in power is absolute. The hunter has become the hunted in his own den. Meanwhile, at the local hall, city officials are scrambling to curry favor with the new noble. Adrien, Vescello's father, is also there planning to build an alliance, with Ryan unaware that his son is currently being dismantled. Ryan enters the hall, coolly dismissing the bootlicker's empty gifts and hollow praise. Ryan cuts straight to business. He reveals a massive blueprint for a dam, leaving the confused officials bewildered. They think it's a fishing tool, but Ryan ignores their ignorance. He explains the brutal reality. The river's annual floods are killing their crops, and this dam is the key to their survival. The officials are stunned. It's a visionary plan that could skyrocket their production. But when Ryan asks for funding, they immediately play the poverty card, bowing their heads in fake despair. Adrien watches from the back, smirking, convinced that the young noble is too naive to squeeze money out of these vultures. Ryan catches their bluff instantly. He calmly mentions that he just seized 50,000 gold coins from a single casino and there are plenty more to raid. The room goes deadly silent. Every official realizes their secret revenue stream is in the crosshairs, and they know Adrien owns every one of them. Adrian's smirk vanishes, replaced by cold, murderous rage. He steps forward, accusing Ryan of violating the nation's laws. The other officials rally behind him like trained dogs, arguing that casinos are legitimate business. They think they're lecturing a fool, but they're actually cornering a predator. Ryan doesn't break a sweat. He calls them out on their blatant hypocrisy. They were too poor a moment ago, but now they are fiercely defending their gambling profits. He gives them a final, freezing ultimatum: surrender the casinos voluntarily, or he will dismantle them piece by piece. Adrien tries to play his trump card, threatening that the Grand Duke will be furious at such insolence. But Ryan isn't impressed by threats from a man who is clearly terrified of losing his cash cow. The air in the room is suffocating as the officials realize their authority means nothing here. They tell Ryan to know his place, but he has already moved past them. With a calm gesture, he orders his soldiers to move in. He isn't interested in a debate over laws written by thieves. He is here to rewrite the rules of this territory through pure, overwhelming force. This isn't just about money, it's about cleansing the rot that has plagued this city for years. Ryan isn't just taking their gold, he's stripping away their protection. With the soldiers at his command and the law on his side, Ryan is finally ready to show them who is the real master. Ryan escalates the tension by dragging into bound casino guards. Adrien, the father of the boss, turns pale. These men are supposed to be untouchable. Ryan calmly asks if anyone recognizes them, mentioning they confessed to an assassination attempt under the orders of a powerful city figure. The officials tremble. If those guards speak, the entire conspiracy falls apart. Adrien, realizing the trap, makes a desperate, gruesome move. Under the guise of righteous anger, he unsheathes a blade and executes both guards on the spot, silencing the witnesses to save his own skin. Adrien feigns regret, claiming he was overcome by fury at their betrayal. Ryan plays along with a cold, terrifying smile, mocking Adrien's strong sense of justice, but the game is far from over. Ryan demands the main culprit be brought forward, and the room goes silent as Vascello is dragged in. Vascello is still screaming, unaware of the death trap his father just navigated. He demands to know why the servants are dead, threatening Ryan with torture. He boasts that he is untouchable in this city. Ryan just laughs. This arrogance is exactly what he needed to shatter their pride. Ryan steps aside, revealing Adrien standing right there. Vascello is stunned, expecting his powerful father to crush the brat, but instead of an attack, Adrien screams in terror, forcing his son to his knees. The realization finally hits Vascello. He has been threatening the Duke's own son. The arrogance evaporates, replaced by sheer, bone-chilling fear. Vascello and Adrien grovel, pledging their absolute loyalty to Ryan, desperate to keep their lives. Ryan remains unmoved. He offers them one path to survival. They must surrender every cent of their illegally obtained fortune immediately. Adrien, seeing no other way, makes a desperate gamble. He betrays the city lord, Eldritch, revealing that Eldritch has been conspiring with external forces to mount a rebellion. The news sends shockwaves through the hall. The officials are horrified. This is treason of the highest order. Ryan plays the part of a hot-headed fool to perfection. He screams at Adrien for spreading such slander and abruptly orders his soldiers to execute him. Eldritch watches, hidden in the crowd, feeling a surge of secret relief. He thinks Ryan is nothing more than a short-sighted, impulsive child. Eldritch steps forward with a fake, submissive smile, swearing his undying loyalty to the Duke's son. He believes he has successfully steered Ryan's rage away from himself. He thinks the brutal Ryan is easy to manipulate. Little does he know, he is walking right into a guillotine. Ryan smiles back, appearing to accept the oath. But the system scan is already active, stripping away Eldritch's mask. Ryan sees the greed, the betrayal, and the hidden rot deep within Eldritch's status window. Every word Eldritch utters is being catalogued by the system as evidence of his doom. The trap is perfectly set. Ryan has exposed the corruption, forced his enemies to tear each other apart, and gained full control over the city's resources. The foolish boy has effectively neutralized every powerful threat in the room without lifting a finger in direct combat. As the hall empties, Ryan stands in the silence of his new power. The Industrial Revolution isn't just about machines, it's about removing the obstacles that prevent progress, with his enemies blinded by their own arrogance. Ryan Edgar has secured his first true victory on the path to becoming an emperor. Back in his office, Ryan calculates his victory. 100,000 gold coins secured 2 years of tax revenue in a single day, but peace is fleeting. Leah enters with a warning Eldritch is plotting a rebellion. Ryan remains calm. He knows the game, and he's waiting for the right moment to strike. Eldritch meets with the Mage Guild Master, Malcolm, fueling his anger with calculated lies. He knows Ryan's refusal to hire mages has offended Dild. Eldritch smiles, convinced that by turning the mages against him, he's left the young noble exposed and defenseless in this dangerous city. The next morning, Malcolm storms into Ryan's chambers, screaming about a blatant insult in the recruitment letter. Ryan is baffled. He simply wanted affordable labor, not a political war. Malcolm threatens to pull all guild support, effectively trying to strangle the project before it even begins. Ryan deploys his system scan on the guild master. To his surprise, Malcolm's loyalty is surprisingly high. He's just being manipulated. Ryan realizes this isn't a true enemy. It's just a puppet acting on someone else's grudge. He decides to turn this confrontation into an opportunity. He explains his logic. Magic is too expensive, mana is limited, and he needs to prioritize the suffering civilians. He challenges the city's rigid hierarchy, refusing to accept that non-magical people are inferior. It's a dangerous, bold stance that threatens to tear down the societal order the mages depend on. Malcolm is enraged by this blasphemy, but Ryan stops him cold. With a single word, Leah pins the guildmaster to the wall with a blade at his throat. Ryan drops the naive noble act. Delivering a chilling ultimatum, he isn't making idle threats, he is enforcing the law. Facing death, Malcolm's arrogance shatters. He begs for mercy. Ryan orders Leah to stand down, realizing that Malcolm is merely a pawn. He spares his life, planting the seeds for a future alliance, all while keeping his true intentions hidden from the prying eyes of the corrupt officials. Suddenly, the system pings Ryan has completed his novice quest by investigating 10 key individuals. He earns a massive reward, but there's no time to celebrate. A new mission flashes on the screen: recruit 5 high-stat characters. The game has leveled up, and Ryan is ready to build his dream team. Malcolm retreats, shaken to the core. Outside, Eldritch is waiting, eager to hear how the guildmaster ruined Ryan, but Malcolm is terrified, warning Eldritch to back off. Ryan didn't just listen, he dominated the conversation, leaving the guildmaster with absolutely no leverage. The tension in the city is reaching a breaking point. Ryan is quietly assembling his resources while the corrupt officials continue to underestimate him. They see a boy playing with blueprints. They don't see an engineer who is already calculating the exact moment their entire world will collapse. The novice quest is finished, but the real war for this territory has just begun. Ryan now needs 5 elite individuals to complete his roster, and he's already setting his sights on the next target. The corrupt lords think they have the upper hand, but they have no idea what's coming. With the system's power and his own brilliant intellect, Ryan isn't just surviving here, he is dismantling their empire piece by piece. The stage is set for an epic revolution, and this is only the beginning. Eldritch is secretly plotting with the Mage Guild Master to poison the entire labor pool. He is absolutely certain that the peasants will be too lazy to work, forcing Ryan to crawl back to him in total defeat. Malcolm despite his initial hesitation, finally decides to let this dark scheme unfold to test Ryan's true resolve. The recruitment notice finally goes up 3 square meals a day and guaranteed daily wages. The citizens, long hardened by years of cruel noble betrayal, are deeply suspicious. They whisper in doubt, fully convinced it's another trap, until Lillian boldly steps up to defend Ryan's name against all the cynics. Lillian's passionate defense is met with loud mockery from the crowd. She ignores them, walking straight to the attendant to sign up her father for the project. The attendant denies Lillian due to her age, but secures her father a stable, life-changing job at the new dam site. A revelation unfolds. Ryan isn't just offering manual labor. He's offering genuine refuge. He allows families to stay in company quarters with free medical care. Lillian's father, overwhelmed by this unexpected grace, breaks down in tears. Real hope finally begins to spread through the starving city. Seeing the benefits, the crowd's skepticism evaporates and they rush forward to sign up. The commoners finally feel they are treated as human beings. Meanwhile, Ryan receives a system reward, a lithium battery blueprint. It is useless without a generator, leaving him frustrated. Malcolm refuses the sabotage, but Eldritch pressures him, claiming the peasants are lazy and deserve nothing. Eventually, Malcolm caves into the suggestion, agreeing to test Ryan's management with this dirty trick, hoping it will expose the young noble's incompetence to the entire city. Eldritch remains confident, telling Malcolm that the peasants will surely fail Ryan. He wants Ryan to feel the sting of failure. However, Malcolm still struggles with his conscience, feeling deeply uneasy about sabotaging the livelihood of the common folk just to satisfy a noble's petty greed. Ryan is troubled by his new system quest. He must recruit 5 high-stat characters to succeed. He considers training Leah, but her stats are already nearly maxed out. He realizes his best bet is to head into the city and scout for new, hidden talents to build his dream team. Ryan is deep in thought, wondering how he can possibly find elite talent in this ruined city. He worries that his current lack of manpower is a major bottleneck. He knows that without the right people by his side, his ambitious industrial plans will never leave the drawing board. Suddenly, the silence is broken. Lillian rushes into the room, horrified and breathless. She informs Ryan that the construction site has fallen into chaos. The workers are not just slacking off. They are physically collapsing, unable to continue their work as a strange illness spreads among them. The scan reveals a horrific truth. The workers aren't just ill, they are being cursed. A dark, evil stone is buried deep underground, radiating a foul corruption that saps the life and strength out of his people. Ryan realizes that Eldritch has truly crossed the line, resorting to lethal, forbidden dark magic to sabotage his progress and destroy his dream. To counter the sabotage, Ryan activates his prospecting skill. He analyzes the geological conditions within a 10-kilometer radius, searching for the source of the dark energy. Though he finds no minerals, he detects a weird, magical anomaly buried deep beneath the earth, right under the construction site. He directs the worker, Rock, to dig at the exact spot. Despite his exhaustion, Rock complies and unearths a suspicious stone emitting faint, cursed magic rays. Even Leah is shocked, as the aura is so subtle that only Ryan could have detected its hidden, malicious location. Ryan orders the crystal sealed in a box. When asked about potential cures, Leah suggests visiting the church or a high-level wizard. Ryan, suspecting the Wizards Guild is behind this, decides they need a priest. He comforts Lillian, promising that whoever cursed her father will pay for this. Ryan arrives at the local church, seeking help for the afflicted workers. He is greeted by a saintly figure who seems kind yet mysterious. Before engaging, Ryan uses his system to investigate her. He discovers her name is Ayura, an elf with surprisingly high loyalty to her faith. Ayora introduces herself and gracefully agrees to examine Rock. She channels her divine energy into him, instantly dispelling the dark curse. Rock feels like a new man, cheering as his strength returns. And he immediately pledges to work even harder to finish the dam project on time. Ryan asks Rock to hold off for a moment. He reveals the black gem to Ayora, seeking her expert opinion. She explains that it is a common magical crystal infused with a significant amount of dark energy, designed to drain the life force of anyone nearby through a lingering, exhausting curse. Ayora clarifies that this was more of a cruel prank than a lethal spell, as the caster only intended to induce fatigue. She then examines the black stone, noting how easily such crystals can be mass-produced to hide in construction sites, effectively stalling Ryan's progress without causing permanent harm. Ayora remarks that she is well aware of the dam project, as it greatly benefits the citizens and eases the church's burden. Ryan is deeply angered by the sabotage, realizing that Malcolm and his guild are playing dangerous games. He decides that the wizard deserves a harsh lesson. Ryan asks if there is a way to purge the curse from the entire site at once. Ayora admits it is difficult, as they cannot simply dig up crystals every single day. She then suggests a unique solution, pointing Ryan toward an eccentric but powerful expert who can solve his problem. She hands Ryan a note directing him to the home of Lady Selena, the former president of the Wizards Guild. Ryan knows that convincing this mysterious, high-level wizard to help him will be his biggest challenge yet. He realizes this is the key to finally overcoming the guild's interference. Through the haze, Ryan spots Selena in the distance, wildly experimenting with dangerous, high-level spells. She is completely absorbed in her research, oblivious to the destruction she has caused, showing no concern for the debris or the consequences of her volatile magical outbursts. Ryan makes his request, but Lady Selena coldly refuses, claiming her research on magical devices is far too important to be interrupted. When Ryan asks if she is only working on simple ones, Selena laughs in his face, mocking his ignorance. Leah immediately steps in, demanding respect for her master. Selena is instantly intrigued by Leah's high magical affinity and insists she become her apprentice. The tension between them reaches a breaking point, but Ryan calmly intervenes, reminding everyone they are here to seek assistance. He shifts the focus back to the failed devices scattered across her desk. Selena admits her struggle. She is trying to create a device capable of storing her own potent electric magic, but every single prototype explodes. When she mentions electric magic, Ryan's eyes light up. He realizes he has finally found the missing piece to his technological puzzle. Ryan shocks Selena by claiming he knows how to build a stable electricity storage device. She thinks he is playing a sick joke, but Ryan remains dead serious. He offers a high-stakes deal. If he provides the method, she must help him deal with the corrupt Mage Guild. Selena agrees to the terms, though she warns that if Ryan fails, he is on his own. Ryan, secretly thrilled, pulls out the lithium battery blueprint. He plans to use the mages as human power generators until he can successfully build his own advanced hydraulic systems. Ryan quickly assembles the battery and presents it to a skeptical Selena. She fears it will blow up the moment magic touches it, but Ryan confidently assures her it is stable. He explains the battery's impressive capacity, urging her to charge it with her own raw electrical energy. Selena channels her lightning into the battery, bracing for an explosion that never comes. Ryan smiles, noting that the battery is far from full. Driven by her massive ego, Selena unleashes even more power, pushing herself to her absolute limits until she finally collapses from total exhaustion. Ryan checks the status. The battery is at 87% capacity, enough to power a vehicle for thousands of kilometers. He realizes he has found the ultimate human battery in Selena. She is stunned, having never imagined that her volatile magic could be harnessed so efficiently and safely. Selena is shocked to learn that Ryan can not only use electricity but also distribute it to the common people. She argues that magic is too difficult to master, but Ryan smiles, revealing he has blueprints for devices far more advanced than this battery to improve life for everyone. Ryan promises to revolutionize the city if Selena works with him. Meanwhile, the corrupt guild master Malcolm sits in his chambers confidently waiting for Ryan to come crawling back for help. He is completely unaware that his former protege is already marching toward him with a plan. The atmosphere in the guild headquarters is tense. Suddenly, the chamber doors swing open and Selena walks in. Malcolm is visibly shaken, his face pale with shock, as he realizes his greatest trump card has just switched sides and is now standing right in front of him. The power dynamic has shifted instantly. Selena's presence signifies the end of Malcolm's unchallenged control. Ryan stands behind her, ready to dismantle the corrupt guild piece by piece. The final confrontation is here, and the corrupt officials are about to pay the ultimate price for their arrogance. Selena confronts Malcolm, accusing him of crossing the line by targeting Ryan. Though Malcolm tries to play innocent, Selena's intimidating pressure leaves him no room to hide. She demands a full confession regarding the sabotage at the construction site, showing him exactly what happens when she is pushed to her limit. Terrified by her aura, Malcolm finally breaks. He confesses that he manipulated the mages, claiming Ryan had disrespected them. He ordered them to create cursed crystals and use teleportation magic to bury them underground, intending to make the workers so exhausted that Ryan would look incompetent and fail. After venting his petty grievances, Malcolm begs for mercy, insisting he had no other malicious intent. Selena berates him, exposing that he has been nothing more than a pawn for others. She orders him to immediately recall the mages and undo the sabotage he caused to the project. Selena contacts Ryan to confirm that the Mage Association is now under control. She even offers to eliminate the noble Eldritch permanently, but Ryan politely declines. He has a deeper plan, intending to keep Eldritch active as bait to lure out the shadowy master pulling the strings behind the scenes. Ryan appreciates her help but keeps his focus on the mission. He urges Selena to put the mages to work charging his batteries, officially turning their aggression into his industrial gain. Selena leaves with a smile, clearly intrigued by Ryan's ambition and eager for their next collaborative project. Meanwhile, Eldritch reports the shift in the Mage Association to his masked master. The master is unbothered by Selena's interference, telling Eldritch that his priority must remain the dam project. He warns that if the dam succeeds, it will revitalize the city, which is the last thing they want to happen. Eldritch assures his master that he has already laid a secondary trap at the dam site. He has colluded with the corrupt nobles in charge of grain supplies to artificially skyrocket prices, betting that Ryan won't have enough capital to keep his workforce fed and the project running until completion. In the city market, chaos erupts as grain prices double in a single day. Lillian desperately argues with a greedy merchant, but the seller scoffs at her pleas, callously telling her to leave if she cannot afford the price. He sees this as a golden opportunity to exploit the desperate citizens for massive profit. When Lillian warns the merchant of Ryan's wrath, the merchant laughs, believing he is untouchable. He cruelly shoves Lillian to the ground to trample her. The situation worsens until Ayura hears of the price hike. Realizing the people will never survive the coming winter without a solution, Ayura decides to take drastic action, preparing a large sum of money to bribe the guards to secure grain. As her sister Iria prepares to carry out the order, she is shocked by the amount of cash involved. Just as the transaction begins, Leah appears out of nowhere to snatch the money pouch away. Ayura is stunned, but the shock deepens when Ryan himself steps out from the shadows. Leah hands the money to him, and Ryan turns to Ayura with a calm, calculating look. He asks if she is finally ready to make a deal with him, setting the stage for a new alliance. Ryan confronts the saint, Iora, and calmly reveals he knows her secret. She and her sister are elves. Despite her initial defensive posture, Ryan cuts through the tension. He isn't here for conflict. He wants to discuss the city's collapsing food supply and his plan to stabilize the market. Iora is skeptical, noting that for major noble families have controlled grain prices for over a century. She doubts Ryan can challenge them, citing their deep influence and past successes in manipulating the market. Ryan, however, remains unmoved by her warnings about their established power. Ryan asks for her insight, and Iora explains that the Edwin family's recent downfall has left no room for negotiation. War and natural disasters have made food scarce, and she fears her people have no chance of surviving. Ryan makes a bold promise: grain will soon be cheaper than ever before. Elsewhere, the four heads of the most powerful families gather to toast their record-breaking profits. Their celebration is interrupted by a butler bearing a terrifying invitation. Ryan has summoned them to a banquet. Fear grips them as they wonder what lethal trap the young noble has prepared. Augustus, head of the Klein family, urges his peers to stay calm, relying on Eldritch's assurances that their price gouging is technically legal. He boasts that no one, not even the Emperor, can challenge their monopoly. They agree to stick together, confident that they are absolutely unstoppable. In a pathetic attempt to play the victim, the four lords arrive at Ryan's hall wearing ragged, dirty clothes. They intend to feign poverty and deceive him. Ryan watches them with a hidden smile, fully aware that these greedy men are walking straight into his web of manipulation. Augustus immediately tries to shift the narrative, claiming they have already donated vast sums to Ryan's dam project and are selling grain at rock-bottom prices. Leerstandsbewijs beitend lies, while Ryan continues to play along, feigning gratitude for their generosity. Ryan shifts the conversation to business, casually mentioning he wants to discuss the grain market. Augustus, sensing an opening, smugly replies that they are aware of Ryan's financial struggles and insists that reducing prices would be a massive, unacceptable loss for their houses. Ryan drops a bombshell that leaves the lords dumbfounded. He tells them he isn't asking for a price reduction. Instead, he commands them to raise the price of grain to 4 gold coins per sack. The lords are paralyzed by confusion, unable to process this sudden change in demand. Augustus is left speechless as Ryan doubles down on the order. Ryan then reveals his true intent. He doesn't care about their price gouging, because he plans to take a 30% commission on every single sale. He is turning their exploitation into his own primary funding source. Augustus and the other crooked merchants are convinced that Ryan is just like them, a cunning player seeking profit. They are relieved to have his official backing for the grain price hike. Fearing betrayal, Augustus warns his cohorts to keep this deal strictly secret to maximize their upcoming windfall. Ryan warns them that any disobedience will result in the same fate as the disgraced Edwin family. The merchants laugh, confident in their plan to corner the market. Meanwhile, Augustus orders his group to buy up all remaining grain from smaller traders before the official price hike goes public. The next day, the saintly Iora storms into Ryan's office, furious over his collusion with the corrupt merchants. She is ready to sever ties, but Lillian intervenes, begging her to trust Ryan's long-term plan. Iora remains skeptical, unable to understand why he would force such suffering on the poor. Iora condemns the price hike to 4 gold coins, warning that the starving citizens will die. Ryan coldly counters that whether it costs 2 coins or for the desperate people will starve regardless. His true objective is not to lower the price, but to orchestrate the total financial ruin of the merchants. 7 days later, prices have skyrocketed to 7 gold coins per bag. Iora returns, absolutely livid, demanding an explanation for the ongoing chaos. Ryan smiles, checking his calendar. The trap is finally set. He tells her it is time to deliver the final crushing blow to the greedy traders. Ayura threatens to cut all ties unless Ryan explains his madness. Ryan finally reveals the truth. He kept her in the dark so her public anger would appear genuine, ensuring the suspicious nobles wouldn't detect his scheme. He asks her one simple question: what does the city truly lack right now? Before she can answer, Ryan reveals his masterstroke. The city is currently paralyzed because there isn't a single merchant left who is actually willing to sell grain. By buying up all the stock to hoard it, the greedy merchants have effectively cut off their own supply lines. Ryan explains that the market hasn't just inflated. It has completely frozen. With no grain hitting the stalls and the merchants holding onto worthless, overpriced stock, the entire system is ready to implode. The trap is about to spring, and the merchants have no exit strategy left. The merchants celebrate their success, unaware that their warehouses are filled with grain they can no longer sell. Ryan watches from the shadows, knowing that the moment he releases his own reserve, their assets will plummet in value, leaving them with nothing but heavy debts. Ayura is stunned as the reality of Ryan's tactical genius sinks in. He hasn't just played the market. He has weaponized the merchants' own greed against them. She finally understands that his cruelty was actually a surgical strike to cleanse the city of its most predatory parasites. The game is reaching its finale. The revolution in the grain market has officially begun, and there is no turning back. Ryan explains that greed is the easiest human trait to exploit. By creating a false scarcity, he has lured merchants from across the empire to flood the city with grain. He knows that, with the promise of a 10,000% profit, these men will lose all sense of caution and gamble their entire fortunes. Ryan makes his move. He tasks Leah with spreading a rumor that the Saints' Ayura is selling church reserves at only 1 gold coin per bag. When Ayura protests, fearing she will run out of supplies for winter, Selena scolds her for being naive and urges her to play along to maximize the chaos. The trap is set. Ryan tasks Selena and the Mage Association to seal off the city, ensuring no merchant can escape the impending financial collapse. Leah remains nervous, fearing what might happen if the merchants hold their ground. But Ryan assures her that his plan is an unavoidable open trap. The panic spreads when news hits the streets. The church is underselling everyone. Augustus and his cohorts are initially skeptical, assuming the church lacks sufficient supply. However, faced with desperate citizens, they decide to buy up the church's grain to maintain their monopoly on the market. The church is immediately besieged by massive crowds. Ayura, acting on Ryan's orders, claims the Pope has sent 10,000 bags of grain to support the suffering people. The merchants, terrified that their stock will soon be worthless, begin to panic. Their greed quickly gives way to pure, unadulterated fear. To heighten the terror, soldiers arrive to announce that even more grain shipments will arrive the next day. Hearing this, the merchants realize their business is doomed. One trader quickly calculates his losses at 95 silver coins per bag. He must sell immediately to recover any profit at all. Panic turns into a race to the bottom. The first merchant screams that he is selling at 95 silver coins. Another immediately undercuts him to 90, and the price begins to freefall. Ryan watches from his balcony, witnessing the beautiful, ruthless spectacle of human nature in full collapse. The market is in total disarray. As traders scramble to dump their supply, the prices plummet further to 80 silver coins and below. Selena is stunned by Ryan's foresight, admitting that everything is unfolding exactly as he predicted. She watches, mesmerized by the total disintegration of the merchant guild. Ryan explains the psychology to Selena. In this race, selling a second slower than your neighbor means the difference between a minor loss and total ruin. The merchants are no longer competing for profit. They are fighting to survive the panic they created with their own insatiable greed. Selena asks if prices will bottom out at 50 silver coins, but Ryan just smiles. He knows the merchant lords, including Augustus, have not yet entered the fray. By the time they finally realize they must liquidate their massive, overpriced hoards, the market will have completely bottomed out. The final blow is coming. When Augustus and his group finally try to dump their massive stockpiles, grain will become the cheapest item in the entire city. The merchant lords are about to go from titans of industry to utter paupers, and Ryan will be the one holding all the cards. Selena doubts that Augustus and his inner circle will crack under pressure, believing their massive investment will keep them firm. Ryan just laughs, telling her that honor among thieves is a myth. When money is at stake, their facade of friendship will shatter into pieces. At Augustus Manor, the panic is palpable. News has spread that outside merchants are dumping grain for as low as 75 silver coins. While one noble remains in denial, Augustus finally realizes the truth. Ryan has masterfully baited them into a trap, orchestrating their ruin from the shadows. Augustus explains the scheme. Ryan faked a shortage to lure outsiders into the city, then used the church's reputation to crash prices. The outside merchants were forced to sell at a loss, leaving the local nobles holding bags of rapidly devaluing stock that nobody wants to buy anymore. Despite knowing they are doomed, Augustus desperately tries to enforce a no-sell policy. He insists they hold the grain to wait for a rebound. However, his followers are terrified. They argue that the people will riot if they don't lower prices, but Augustus demands absolute loyalty to his plan. The tension in the room explodes. One noble shouts that they are losing their entire fortune by the hour, while another accuses Augustus of leading them to slaughter. Augustus silences them with threats, warning that the moment any of them tries to sell, the group will take them down first. The nobles agree to his face, but the air is thick with deceit. Deep down, each of them is planning to betray the others. They realize they are on their own, and as they leave the manor, their secret plans to liquidate their assets begin to take shape in their minds. Paranoia takes over. Once they are home, each noble immediately orders his retainers to sell everything before their rivals can beat them to the market. Even Augustus' spy's own demands for unity, secretly instructs his men to dump their grain supplies before the market hits zero. Meanwhile, Ryan shows Ayora a massive, ever-growing reserve of grain. By selling at the market peak and buying back at the bottom, Ryan's strategy has generated a massive fortune. Ayora is shocked. She finally realizes that their wealth is not shrinking, but exploding in size. Lillian bursts in with news. Prices have crashed further, with 3 bags of grain now costing only 1 gold coin. Ryan encouraged Ayora to buy even more, explaining that this is the perfect time to secure resources. He then steers the conversation toward their secret deal with the elves. Ryan proposes a comprehensive alliance with the elven tribe, offering to provide everything from essential grain to fertile land. Ayora is stunned by the scale of the offer. She realizes that such a profound decision is far beyond her authority and must be decided directly by the elven queen. Ryan happily agrees to an audience with the queen. Ayora writes an urgent letter for delivery to the elven leadership. With the grain crisis nearly solved, Ryan feels confident that the corrupt city nobles will be too financially crippled to cause him any more trouble in the near future. As Ryan strategizes, Leah gently interrupts his thoughts, urging him to take a rest. He is deep in contemplation when a stranger suddenly bursts into the room, furiously complaining about the brutal conduct of the city's soldiers. Ryan stands up and piqued. The man demands to know who Ryan thinks he is to meddle in military affairs. Ryan doesn't take the bait. He remains composed. He walks toward the man, projecting an aura of confidence that catches the stranger off guard, revealing his intent to do business and infiltrate the military. Lillian is tasked with transporting vital supplies to the elven lands, but corrupt soldiers block her path at the city gate. They aggressively smash her containers under the false pretense of an inspection. And when they find nothing illegal, they brazenly demand an extortionate toll fee to let her pass. Lillian is outraged by their brutality, especially since the goods are worth less than the bribe they demand. The guard captain insists that Ryan ordered the hike, forcing her to pay 5 coins. Knowing it's a lie, she pays to avoid further trouble, realizing that his name is being misused. Meanwhile, Ryan travels in a separate carriage, incognito, questioning his companion about his own reputation. He is shocked to hear the merchant fiercely defend him as a true savior of the people, praising his grain policies despite his own personal financial losses during the market collapse. The merchant confesses that he would serve Ryan with everything he owns if they ever met. Ryan probes further into the city's dark side by asking about the notorious Edwin family. The merchant drops a devastating truth: their massive fortune is built entirely on the back of illegal human trafficking. Ryan is consumed by cold rage. While he fights to increase his territory's population and prosperity, the Edwins are actively dismantling his efforts through slavery. He realizes he cannot fix the territory until he purges the corrupt guards who allow such atrocities to flourish in the shadows. Their journey continues until they reach the border fort, where another group of soldiers demands yet another illicit toll. Lillian tries to protest, arguing that they have already paid at the city gate. But the guards simply threaten them, claiming the border fee is a separate, mandatory requirement. Lillian is furious when the guard demands a full gold coin for passage. Before she can lose her temper completely, Ryan calls out from inside the carriage, telling her to simply pay the fee. He is ready to face them, treating this moment as the perfect trap to catch the corrupt guards. The soldiers, sensing easy prey, order everyone out of the carriage for a thorough inspection. They believe they have found a wealthy traveler to exploit, but they have no idea who is actually sitting inside. Ryan calmly steps out of the carriage, ready to confront them for their lies. Ryan emerges with a regal, icy elegance that stops the soldiers in their tracks. The moment the lead soldier sees him, the color drains from his face. He senses a terrifying power radiating from Ryan, a presence that commands respect and triggers an instinctive, deep-seated fear. The guard trembles, his voice faltering as he demands to know who Ryan is. He realizes too late that he has stepped way out of line. Ryan doesn't need to shout. His mere presence turns the tables, signaling the beginning of the end for the military's corrupt extortion ring. With the corrupt soldiers now cornered by their own greed and arrogance, Ryan prepares to deliver justice. The facade of the border guards is about to be shattered, and the process of purging the military begins right here, marking a major turning point in Ryan's quest for total control. The soldiers don't recognize Ryan, but they know his companion, Trist. It turns out these guards are actually former bandits, recruited by the Edwin family to manage their human trafficking operations. The corrupt soldier slaps Trist, demanding payment for past errors and hiking the toll to 5 gold coins. Ryan intervenes, questioning why the city's tax revenue is so low despite these heavy tolls. The soldier, annoyed by a nobody talking back, spots Leah and begins harassing her. When he tries to grab her, Ryan steps in and grabs his hand, branding him a disgrace to his uniform. The situation turns violent in a flash. The soldier tries to strike Ryan, but Leah cuts him down instantly. On Ryan's cold orders, she unleashes her full power to eliminate all the corrupt guards at the fort. Ryan scans their stats, disgusted to find they are nothing but literal trash. Ryan reflects on his father's warning about the danger lurking near his territory. He realizes that if he hadn't discovered this rot now, his entire city would have eventually fallen to the Empire's internal corruption. He is clearing the path, but the true threat is only just arriving. Ryan prepares for what's next, knowing the local military is thoroughly compromised. He understands that simply killing guards isn't enough. He has to dismantle the entire network of corruption. His eyes sharpen as he senses a much stronger presence approaching from the distance. The air grows heavy as the sound of armored boots echoes across the border. Ryan stands calmly amidst the aftermath of the skirmish, his posture radiating absolute authority. He is ready to face whoever is behind this systematic rot within his own territory. A tense silence falls over the fort as the remaining soldiers stop their retreat. They look toward the source of the heavy footsteps, their faces shifting from pure terror to desperate hope. A commanding figure emerges from the shadows, clearly prepared to intervene. It is a man of significant stature, moving with the precision of a seasoned warrior. Ryan checks his stats. He is truly talented, a high-ranking officer, yet his aura is tainted with a deep, unsettling sense of betrayal. He is a formidable weapon, but one that is no longer loyal. Leah moves with terrifying efficiency, turning the fort into a graveyard. Blood sprays as she dismantles the corrupt unit in seconds. Just as the last of them falls, a booming voice shatters the silence. General Caesar steps into view, his armor gleaming, looking down at the carnage with cold disdain. Caesar is the city's strongest shield, a man of immense talent and military prestige. As he steps toward Ryan, the air seems to freeze. Ryan immediately activates his system scan, a translucent blue window appearing before his eyes, detailing the general's formidable combat stats and hidden history. The system data is clear. Caesar is incredibly powerful, yet his loyalty level is dangerously low. Ryan realizes this man has been bought off by his enemies. Seeing the corruption displayed in black and white, Ryan prepares to face a warrior who has traded his honor for Eldritch's gold. Caesar draws his blade, mocking Ryan as an impostor and a nuisance. He ignores the warnings of his own men, blinded by his own ego and the corrupt promises he's received. The general is convinced that he can easily crush the young duke and claim the rewards promised by his conspirators. The general commands his troops to charge, but Ryan remains unmoving. He has seen the general's stats, and he knows that despite the man's talent, he is a broken tool. Ryan stands his ground, ready to prove that true power doesn't come from a paycheck, but from absolute control. As the clash begins, Ryan's eyes glow with a calculated, dangerous light. He has lured the traitor out into the open, and he intends to make him the final example of what happens to those who betray the state. The purge of the military has officially reached the point of no return. Leah is furious, questioning if Caesar realizes that betraying the Duke is an act of treason. The soldiers are terrified, knowing that harming the Duke's son spells death for their families. Yet, Caesar pushes a dangerous lie. He claims Ryan is a fraud and that killing him will earn them a fortune in the north. Greed begins to outweigh fear. Caesar dangles the prospect of a new, wealthy life in the Orvus Empire, successfully swaying the soldiers' wavering loyalty. With their morale shifted, they draw their weapons, ready to commit high treason for a chance at a quick profit and a clean slate. Caesar demands Ryan's last words. Ryan coolly offers one final chance for repentance, but Caesar rejects it, signaling his men to charge. 60 Sekunden, realizing the battle is now life or death. Leah tears off her restrictive skirt, her movements becoming lethal and explosive as she prepares to clear the path. Leah descends upon the soldiers like a storm. She is untouchable, slicing through their defenses with terrifying speed, even when a spearman gets close enough to threaten Ryan's life. Leah reacts in a heartbeat, throwing her dagger with pinpoint accuracy to save her master before he even flinches. Ryan remains standing in the eye of the storm, his aura undisturbed, observing the carnage with cold detachment. He gives Caesar one final ominous warning to stop his stubborn pursuit, but the general, blinded by the promise of 1,000 gold coins, only drives his men to be more reckless. The soldiers fight with renewed desperation, chasing the bounty, but Leah is on a completely different level. She fights while rooted to a single spot, dismantling every challenger who enters her range. Seeing his men crumble, Caesar loses his temper and orders his elite wizards to join the fray. The wizards hurl magical ice arrows at Leah. She deflects them with ease, but the tactical trap is sprung. The residual cold energy anchors to the ground, freezing Leah's legs solid. 130's immobilized and trapped, she becomes a sitting duck. And Caesar immediately orders his men to overwhelm her. Ryan stays calm, throwing a hammer to Leah to help her gain altitude as she breaks free. Simultaneously, he reveals his secret weapon, an industrial-grade electrical battery. He prepares to unleash a force these men cannot comprehend, waiting for the perfect moment to discharge the current. Ryan drops the live cable, and the current surges through the ground. The soldiers scream in agony as lightning rips through their bodies. Ryan, insulated by his boots, watches the chaos with amusement. Wishing he had a camera to record this demonstration of high-voltage reality. The remaining guards are paralyzed by terror, convinced they are witnessing Forbidden's godlike thunder magic. Caesar is infuriated by their retreat, executing one of his own men for cowardice, but the fear is already irreversible. He shouts for a final, desperate charge, believing Ryan is just one man. Leah notices the soldiers are slowing down, and Ryan realizes his battery is finally drained. It was only a test run, but it has bought them enough time to break the enemy's spirit. Caesar, noticing the sudden silence of the lightning, orders his men to close in for the final kill. Just as Caesar thinks victory is within his grasp, the sky literally cracks open. A blinding bolt of lightning strikes the earth, and out of the brilliant flash, Selena emerges. Her eyes are burning with pure, unadulterated ragicite that makes Caesar's blood run cold. Selena stares down the general, her presence alone silencing the entire battlefield. She calls Caesar a bold man for touching her business, and Caesar knows instantly that his time has run out. The tide has turned, and the real hunter has arrived to finish what Ryan started. Selena and her wizard squad arrive right on time just as Ryan's battery hits empty. Selena is dying to know the secret behind that shocking performance, but Ryan tells her to hold her horses. First, they have some trash to take out, and by trash he means the general and his corrupt merry men. The mages blast the rebels with lightning, turning the battlefield into a high-voltage comedy show. 40 Sekunde Caesar, refusing to accept he's been outplayed, lunges at Ryan with a wild, desperate slash. But Leah, ever the efficient maid, catches his blade with a bored expression, sending him flying with a single, brutal kick. The duel is intense. Caesar swings his blade with manic fury, but Ryan remains effortlessly cool. Just as Caesar overcommits, Leah, our ever-efficient maid, snaps into action, catching his blade like a common toy and delivering a kick that sends him flying across the fort. Caesar goes airborne, crashing into the walls with all the grace of a sack of potatoes. It's a messy end to his grand rebellion. He finally stirs from his dazed state, only to find himself unceremoniously tied to a pole, effectively becoming the city's newest, most miserable lawn ornament. Ryan met about the Sekunde just amused. He tosses a stack of incriminating documents at Caesar's feet, helpfully pointing out that his career in corruption is officially over. Caesar looks shocked, like he didn't realize his secret side hustle was about as subtle as a neon sign. Ryan reveals that the incriminating papers were just a side quest. His real goal was gathering tax data to rebuild the city, leaving a confused Caesar to wonder if Ryan is a visionary genius or just a high-functioning nutcase. Then Ryan drops the hammer. Dead nobles are just corpses, and corpses don't pay taxes. Ryan gives Caesar a choice: play nice or join the local cemetery's permanent residency program. Watching the light drain from the general's eyes, Ryan turns his back on the mess, focusing on the real headache: the city walls that are currently about as sturdy as wet cardboard. Ryan pulls up a map, mentally planning his next move. The elves are a diplomatic puzzle, his sister is a non-issue, and Soren is the only northern problem left. Leah pops in with a smile, announcing they've recovered 350,000 gold coins, enough to make even the grumpiest guard break into a happy dance. Selena is still pestering Ryan about his thunder magic. She's acting like a curious student while Ryan tries to explain the basic principles of electricity. Just as he's about to lecture her on the dangers of reckless battery handling, the mood shifts faster than a lightning bolt. They are deep in their technical chat when suddenly the mood takes a nosedive. The laughter stops as everyone realizes that something or someone has completely disrupted the local peace. It's the calm before the storm, and the storm is arriving onto frantic feet. Malcolm comes sprinting over, looking like he's seen a ghost. He spills the beans. Eldritch has officially gone rogue and seized the city. It's a total disaster, but Ryan? He just chuckles. To him, this isn't a crisis. It's the moment Eldritch finally walks straight into his trap. Selena is stunned, but Ryan explains that the moment Eldritch rebelled, he surrendered his last shred of protection. The rebellion is exactly what Ryan needed to clear the board once and for all. The stage is set, it's time to head back and settle the score once and for all. Ryan returns to the city gates with his troops, and the air is thick with tension. Eldritch is waiting there like he owns the place, ready to launch into his pathetic life story about how the Duke treated him like trash. Ryan just stares, completely unimpressed. He's not here to listen to a villain's midlife crisis. He's here to take back what's his. Eldritch starts his monologue, whining about how he built this empire from scratch only to be dumped in Iceling like a bag of rotten vegetables. He's claiming he's not rebelling, but simply reclaiming his worth. Ryan honestly looks like he's trying to stay awake while listening to these boring, repetitive excuses. Ryan cuts through the noise and gives them a clear final ultimatum: surrender in threes or prepare for a funeral. The nobles are stunned for a split second, but then their arrogance takes over. They genuinely think they're the smartest people in the room, completely missing the fact that their doom is already in motion. The entire group of nobles breaks into uncontrollable, hysterical laughter. They think Ryan is a total amateur who has no idea how to conduct a siege. Eldritch mocks him, calling him a spineless coward, unaware that his own laughter is the soundtrack to his final days as the city's self-appointed ruler. Eldritch decides to spice things up by challenging Ryan to a bet. If Ryan fails to breach those walls in 3 days, he hands over the entire city. Ryan doesn't even blink. He just watches them with a smirk, thinking about how they are literally gift-wrapping their own destruction. It's almost too easy. Selena and Leah are whispering, urging Ryan to wait for the Duke's main army to arrive. But Ryan isn't interested in the standard, slow-motion way of doing things. He's going to dismantle this city using the one thing his enemies don't have, the cold hard logic of modern engineering and physics. The bet is sealed. Ryan wears that specific, terrifying smile that tells you he's already mapped out every single detail of their ruin. The nobles are cheering and celebrating their victory while the audience just sits back, waiting for the moment they realize they've been completely played by a genius. Ryan and his team return to their temporary base to finalize the strategy. Leah and Selena are looking for a sword and shield plan, but Ryan is busy talking about logs, hay, and thermal dynamics. He's ignoring every single traditional handbook on warfare to write his own, far more explosive version. Ryan starts organizing the logistics, piles of firewood, hay balls, and freezing the nearby lake. His own soldiers are looking at him like he's lost his mind, but Ryan just brushes it off. He's setting the stage for the most spectacular structural collapse the Empire has ever seen. Selena is honestly worried, hovering around and asking if this bonfire strategy is actually going to work. Ryan just gives her a knowing wink, telling her to trust the process. He knows that in a world obsessed with swords and magic, physics is the most devastating weapon of all. The charge begins. Ryan's men rush the walls, carrying nothing but bundles of firewood. Eldritch watches from above, nearly choking on his own laughter. Is he trying to roast the rocks? The noble incompetence is honestly at an all-time high, and it's hilarious to watch them underestimate him. The wall is now roaring with flames, heating up the stone. Eldritch is still busy scolding his guards, forbidding them from using magic to put it out. He's so obsessed with saving resources for the main event that he's literally helping Ryan cook the foundation of his own fortress. The countdown is on. Every single stick of wood is a final nail in Eldritch's coffin. The smug expressions on the nobles' faces are about to melt away as the walls start to groan and crack. The stone wall trick is going to be the most expensive physics lesson in the history of this empire. Eldritch is living his best life in his quarters, convinced Ryan is just wasting expensive firewood. He's mocking the bonfire as if it's the dumbest war strategy in history. He gathers his noble entourage, all giddy with excitement. Because today is the final day of the betand, they are absolutely certain they've won. Ryan rolls up to the city gate looking cool, calm, and collected. The nobles on the wall are practically rolling on the floor laughing, asking if he's come to surrender. Ryan just gives them a final last chance warning, while Eldritch thinks Ryan's brain has finally melted from the heat. Ryan signals the start. Selena rises into the air, gathering a massive amount of energy. The air starts to hum with electricity as she prepares to strike. Eldritch and his men are still laughing, unaware that their impenetrable stone walls are about to be introduced to the concept of thermal shock. Selena begins her grand performance, channeling lightning and weather magic with intense focus. The mages on the wall scramble to set up a barrier, terrified of what's coming. They're so focused on defending against a magical strike that they're completely blind to the real danger approaching from below. As Selena continues her sustained strike on the wall, the tension is palpable. The nobles are screaming for their mages to hold the line, thinking it's a standard battle of power. They're so busy watching the sky that they don't notice the ground troops quietly moving into their final, fatal positions. Ryan bellows the order, charge. His men surge forward, dousing everything with ice-cold water. The reaction is an immediate, violent shriek of materials as the surge of power ends. A drained Selena starts to fall, and Ryan is right there to catch her, offering a sincere thanks for her service. Meanwhile, the defenders are groaning in confusion, realizing their defense is falling apart. Eldritch's face goes from smug to pale in a heartbeat as he realizes his fortress is now a pile of gravel. Eldritch's face goes from smug to pale in a heartbeat as he realizes his fortress is now a pile of gravel. Boom! The wall collapses entirely and Ryan's men storm through the rubble. The science of expansion and contraction is a much harsher teacher than any rival general, and Eldritch is finally getting a front-row seat to the lesson. His impenetrable stronghold has disintegrated into dust. Eldritch tries to run, but his panicked noble friends surround him not to protect him, but to keep him from fleeing so they don't get caught alone. The rebellion ends with a pathetic, shattered pile of burnt stones. It's the ultimate lesson in why you shouldn't mess with an engineer. Ryan struts into the city, hailed as a genius. The soldiers are celebrating because their most dangerous injury was, surprisingly, a sprained ankle. Talk about an efficient siege. Everyone is curious, how did he turn a stone wall into confetti? Selena is pestering him for the secret, and Ryan finally cracks under the pressure. Ryan starts a physics lecture. He talks about thermal expansion and contraction, the stuff that makes metal bridges creak and Ryan's enemies cry. He explains how atoms vibrate like crazy when they're hot and get lazy when they're cold. It's basically science 101, and Selena looks like her brain is about to overheat. Ryan promises to finish the lesson later, but they have to deal with Eldritch. The captured nobles try to pull the eye was tricked. Card. Ryan just rolls his eyes and informs them that if he executes them, he inherits their property anyway. It's not tyranny. He jokes, it's just efficient wealth redistribution. Meanwhile, Eldritch is hiding in his quarters with a masked mastermind, frantically explaining that Ryan used fire and water. The masked guy is fuming, calling it absolute trash because magic doesn't work like that. He's so offended by the lack of sorcery that he's practically having an existential crisis. The masked guy is convinced Ryan cheated with some unknown magic. Eldritch, who is currently sweating bullets, tries to convince him that escaping is the only move left. But the mastermind is still busy being a snob about the physics of the situation, completely oblivious to the fact that their time is up. Just as they're about to bolt, a calm, familiar voice cuts through the air. Ryan is standing right behind them, leaning against the doorframe like he's at a cafe. Where exactly do you think you're running to? He asks. Eldritch looks like he's seen a ghost, while the masked guy realizes his day just got a whole lot worse. Ryan mocks the masked stranger, asking if the mask is there to hide a bad haircut or actual scars. The guy tries to talk big, threatening Ryan with the approaching Orvis army. He's clearly trying to regain his villain dignity, but it's hard to sound scary when you're cornered by an engineer who just broke your castle. The masked guy tries to make a move, but Leah's reaction is instant. She throws her knife with surgical precision, shattering the mask and leaving a bloody souvenir below his eye. It turns out Leah knows this guy. It's Raven Edwin, the traitor who betrayed Ryan's father. Talk about a small world. Raven, desperate and exposed, slams a scroll onto the ground. In a flash of light, he and Eldritch vanish into thin air. Leah is crushed that she missed the kill, but Ryan is surprisingly chill. He knows the game is just beginning, and he's already plotting his next move against this Raven character. Now, the real problem hits. The Orvis army is coming, and the wall is currently a pile of gravel. Selena is freaking out, wondering if they're doomed, but Ryan just smirks. He's already brainstorming his next scientific breakthrough to turn a potential massacre into another epic win. Ryan heads to the megaphone, yes, a medieval megaphone, to address the city. He delivers the bad news. The Orvis army is knocking on the door. He's being completely transparent, which, let's be honest, is a bold strategy when you want to avoid a citywide panic attack. The reaction is, predictably, pure terror. The citizens start losing their minds, panicking about the fact that they've been attacked twice in such a short time. Selena looks at Ryan like he's officially gone insane, thinking that announcing the apocalypse was the worst PR move ever. Ryan stands there, completely unfazed by the screaming crowd. He's calculated the odds, the physics, and the logistics. And he's ready to make the Orvis army regret the day they decided to invade his city. It's not just a defense. It's about to be another masterclass in Ryan's rules of war. The city is in chaos. Ryan stands on a podium looking like a pro-politician. He drops the "Empire thinks you're cowards" line, and suddenly the crowd is furious. He just weaponized their anger to build his own army. Shortly after, the crowd roars in support, ready to fight for their city. Selena is still confused, questioning why he'd tell them about the invading army. Ryan just smirks, knowing that a comm commander is all you need. He turns the Empire's insult into his greatest rallying cry. Soon enough, Selena realizes that Ryan's psychological warfare is actually working. Ryan takes a deep breath, knowing the hardest part is yet to come. He has to stabilize his people, organize the evacuation, and keep his cool under pressure. By the time he finishes his preparations, the tension in the city is at an all-time high. Ryan finally walks back into his office, closing the door on the noise outside. He starts digging through stacks of documents, looking for any edge he can find. He needs something explosive, something game-changing. Ryan begins his deep dive into the historical military archives. Ryan is staring intently at the documents. Every page he flips is a potential solution. He's looking for that one specific detail that will turn the tide of the war and save the city. As he reads, Ryan becomes focused, his finger tracking lines of text. He's frantic, flipping through history books, looking for any weapon he can use. He ignores the boring stuff and goes straight for the forbidden topics. Ryan finally spots the dusty book about dark green divine oil, and his eyes light up with a realization. Ryan realizes it's not just a ritual material for witches. It's unrefined petroleum. In A World of Swords, he just found the equivalent of a modern-day fuel depot. Promptly, Ryan rushes his men toward the warehouse doors to investigate. As they dig through crates, they find something even better, Eldritch's secret stash of embezzled cash. Ryan laughs, thinking about how he'll use the villain's own money to fund his city's defense. Moments later, soldiers uncover the hidden treasure chests filled with gold. They find it barrels of thick, dark green oil. Ryan opens one, takes a whiff and grins. This isn't just oil. It's the get-out-of-jail-free card he's been looking for. The soldiers finally reveal the barrels of dark green oil to Ryan. Meanwhile, at the Orvis camp, the vibe is toxic. Eldritch and Raven are crawling back to Duke Castile like stray dogs. Castile is not impressed. He expected failure, but he didn't expect this much incompetence. The scene abruptly cuts to the dark, tense atmosphere of the enemy tent. Eldritch tries to blame Forbidden's magic, but Castile is done listening. He stares at them with that "I'm surrounded by idiots" look. The betrayal cycle is about to hit its peak as Castile loses his patience. Suddenly, Duke Castile aggressively throws the arrest warrant directly at the masked man's feet. The guards swarm in, surrounding the duo instantly. Raven is dragged out, screaming, cursing, and protesting, while Eldritch drops to his knees in a desperate, pathetic attempt to save his skin. Raven is forcibly dragged out of the tent by the Duke's guards, leaving Eldritch to face his own inevitable doom. The city is in chaos. Ryan stands on a podium, looking like a pro-politician. He drops the "Empire thinks you're cowards" line, and suddenly, the crowd is furious. He just weaponized their anger to build his own army. Shortly after, the crowd roars in support, ready to fight for their city. Selena is still confused, questioning why he'd tell them about the invading army. Ryan just smirks, knowing that a calm commander is all you need. He turns the Empire's insult into his greatest rallying cry. Soon enough, Selena realizes that Ryan's psychological warfare is actually working. Ryan takes a deep breath, knowing the hardest part is yet to come. He has to stabilize his people, organize the evacuation, and keep his cool under pressure. By the time he finishes his preparations, the tension in the city is at an all-time high. Ryan finally walks back into his office, closing the door on the noise outside. He starts digging through stacks of documents, looking for any edge he can find. He needs something explosive, something game-changing. Ryan begins his deep dive into the historical military archives. Ryan is staring intently at the documents. Every page he flips is a potential solution. He's looking for that one specific detail that will turn the tide of the war and save the city. As he reads, Ryan becomes focused, his finger tracking lines of text. He's frantic, flipping through history books, looking for any weapon he can use. He ignores the boring stuff and goes straight for the forbidden topics. Ryan finally spots the dusty book about dark green divine oil, and his eyes light up with a realization. Ryan realizes it's not just a ritual material for witches. It's unrefined petroleum. In A World of Swords, he just found the equivalent of a modern-day fuel depot. Promptly, Ryan rushes his men toward the warehouse doors to investigate. As they dig through crates, they find something even better, Eldritch's secret stash of embezzled cash. Ryan laughs, thinking about how he'll use the villain's own money to fund his city's defense. Moments later, soldiers uncover the hidden treasure chests filled with gold. They find it barrels of thick, dark green oil. Ryan opens one, takes a whiff and grins. This isn't just oil. It's the get-out-of-jail free card he's been looking for. The soldiers finally reveal the barrels of dark green oil to Ryan. Meanwhile, at the Orvis camp, the vibe is toxic. Eldritch and Raven are crawling back to Duke Castile like stray dogs. Castile is not impressed. He expected failure, but he didn't expect this much incompetence. The scene abruptly cuts to the dark, tense atmosphere of the enemy tent. Eldritch tries to blame Forbidden's magic, but Castile is done listening. He stares at them with that "I'm surrounded by idiots" look. The betrayal cycle is about to hit its peak as Castile loses his patience. Suddenly, Duke Castile aggressively throws the arrest warrant directly at the masked man's feet. The guards swarm in, surrounding the duo instantly. Raven is dragged out, screaming, cursing, and protesting, while Eldritch drops to his knees in a desperate, pathetic attempt to save his skin. Raven is forcibly dragged out of the tent by the Duke's guards, leaving Eldritch to face his own inevitable doom. Castile is still flapping his gums, boasting about his massive army as if he's hosting a parade. He tells Ryan to surrender right now or face the consequences of being turned into a pincushion before the sun sets. The arrogance is enough to power a city, and Ryan is clearly just waiting for him to shut up. Ryan finally hits his limit. He gives Leah a signal, and she wastes no time. She hurls a dagger with lethal precision that bypasses the mage's weak barrier and slices right across Castile's cheek, drawing a line of bright red blood. Ryan drops a cold reminder that the first throw was just a polite warning, but the next one won't miss. Castile is shaking, feeling like an absolute clown in front of his own troops. He gathers his fragile ego and retreats to his camp, fuming like a kettle about to explode. Once he's back in the camp, he's still reeling from the public embarrassment. He's absolutely determined to make Ryan pay for the humiliation, even if it means throwing all his common sense out the window. He barks orders, demanding an immediate assault, refusing to let the day end without a brutal fight. His generals try to talk sense into him, suggesting they take a break since the men have been marching for 3 days straight, but Castile is having none of it. He's acting like a petulant toddler who thinks speed can solve his lack of competence and issues the final, rash order to attack. He ignores all expert advice and forces his exhausted army to gear up for an immediate suicide mission. The poor soldiers back at the barracks were dreaming of dinner, only to be told they're heading to their graves instead. They are genuinely weeping over their empty, grumbling stomachs as they realize their lives are worth nothing. The soldiers are forced to dash toward the walls, dragging their heavy, tired feet while Ryan's commander asks if it's finally time to light them up with arrows. Ryan pauses, looking at the approaching wave of pathetic humanity, and asks his men if any of them have actually fought the Empire's rabble before. A soldier confirms the troop quality is abysmal, and Ryan realizes these are just fresh, starving recruits. He's shocked to find out that Castile isn't even feeding his own men, he's just using them as meat shields to soak up damage and tire out Ryan's defenses before the real fight begins. Ryan is boiling with rage that someone could be this heartless to their own people. His soldiers have their arrows ready, waiting for the signal to rain death upon the recruits. But Ryan does the unthinkable. He stands still, eyes cold, and explicitly tells his men to hold their fire and do absolutely nothing. Ryan orders Selena to unleash a specialized cold wind spell across the battlefield. The temperature plummets instantly, and the soldiers start shivering in their boots, while Castile chuckles, thinking Ryan is wasting precious mana. The freezing air begins to bite into the morale of his entire front line. The magic hits the front lines, and the effect is immediate. The soldiers are literally freezing in place. Selena wonders if a bit of lightning would be flashier, but Ryan stops her. coolly explaining that the ancient double trouble of hunger and biting cold is enough to break any army. The poor recruits are now too busy chattering their teeth to hold their swords, and they start begging to retreat. Their captain screams at them like a maniac, but the soldiers are frozen solid, unable to move a muscle. They've finally realized that fighting for a jerk like Castile isn't worth dying of hypothermia. Castile is still sitting comfortably, completely oblivious to the tragedy unfolding at the gates. He's busy bragging to his cronies about how smart he is, imagining himself capturing Ryan as a trophy. He's so focused on his own ego that he hasn't noticed his entire front line is currently begging for a warm blanket. The situation turns into a total disaster for the Empire. The soldiers are failing to push forward, and the frontline commander is absolutely desperate. He realizes that if they don't retreat now, his men are going to turn into human ice sculptures, so he sends an urgent messenger to the rear. The messenger sprints all the way to Castile's fancy tent, panting and desperate. He reports that the front line is collapsing because the soldiers are starving and freezing. Instead of acting like a leader, Castile just stares at him with pure annoyance, clearly hating that his glory day is being ruined by facts. Castile calls the messenger a coward and loses his temper completely. He doesn't care if the men are dying. He only cares that they aren't winning. In a fit of narcissistic rage, he executes the messenger on the spot and declares that he is going to head to the front to lead the charge himself. Castile hops on his horse, looking like a budget hero in a suit of armor that cost more than his soldiers' lives. He rides up to the city walls with his main force, ready to personally bless the battlefield with his supposed genius, completely unaware that he is riding directly into a dumpster fire of his own making. He screams at his mages to get to work, and they frantically start chanting, raising the earth to construct a massive bridge over the moat. Castile watches with a smug grin, believing he's solved the problem. But he's really just building a very expensive path to his own defeat. With the bridge magically completed, Castile draws his sword and bellows for a full-scale assault. He promises a fortune to whoever captures Ryan alive. The entire Imperial force lets out a roar and begins the final charge, sprinting across the bridge with delusions of victory dancing in their heads. As the charging mob gets closer, Ryan's men report the situation. Ryan doesn't look worried at all. Instead, he turns to Leah with a sinister smirk and orders her to dump the special cog into the moat, blocking all exits. It's time to show the enemy what true environmental impact looks like. Soldiers pull the levers, and the thick, dark oil starts gushing through the pipes. It cascades down into the river, swirling right underneath the bridge where the Imperial troops are crossing. They are so busy running toward the walls that they don't even realize they're currently walking across a giant liquid bomb. Meanwhile, Rosalind is sprinting toward Icelanding City, knowing her family's fate rests on her shoulders. After 3 days of relentless marching, her men are exhausted, but she's not stopping for anyone. She pulls up her map, calculating a faster route that cuts through the chaos, determined to outsmart the invading Imperial army. She stops her horse, sensing she's being watched by her babysitter, Mage Nox, who's been tailing her from the shadows. With a sharp command, she forces him to reveal himself. Suddenly, a guy pops out of thin air, causing the guards to freak out and reach for their swords. Rosalind waves her guards down, looking at Nox with a mix of defiance and desperate need. As he emerges from his hidden space, she isn't intimidated by the man sent to assassinate her if she messes up. She's too busy planning a tactical strike that could wipe out the Imperial army in one go. She lays out her plan, bypass the city and attack the Imperial rear. She knows Nox is supposed to keep her on a leash, but she's banking on the fact that he doesn't want Ryan to die. She's effectively playing a game of chicken with an assassin, all for the sake of the mission. The tension is palpable, but Rosalind doesn't blink. She explains the entire tactical breakdown, showing exactly where Nox needs to go. She wants him to handle the water upstream, waiting for her signal to open the floodgates and turn the battlefield into a giant, muddy grave for the invaders. As she finalizes the details, the scene shifts to the Elven Queen's palace. The elves are debating Ryan's proposal, with half the court calling humans cunning snakes. The Queen, however, knows they're desperate for food. So she lets Ayora speak the truth about Ryan's competence. The debate drags on as the stubborn elders argue whether Ryan is truly a genius or just exceptionally lucky. They are bickering back and forth, wasting precious time trying to decide if a mere human is worth the political trouble of an alliance. While the Queen watches the room with a weary, calculating gaze that signals she's tired of their arrogance. Finally, the Elven Queen shuts down the dissenters and makes her choice. She will personally head to the battlefield to see if Ryan is actually worth saving. She isn't betting on a dying horse, so she decides to see the war for herself, and as she prepares to move, the scene finally cuts to the chaotic front wall. At the wall, Ryan is playing it cool. He stares at the chaos below and refuses to trigger the trap yet. He's obsessed with perfection, waiting for the perfect moment while Imperial soldiers start crawling up the wall like ants, oblivious to the fact that they are already doomed. Castile, high on his own ego, finally decides to cross the bridge himself. He charges forward, thinking he's going to capture Ryan alive and claim the glory. He has no idea that the genius plan he's executing is actually just walking perfectly into Ryan's kill zone. Ryan's guards rush to form a human shield, shielding him from the chaos of the wall. Ryan spots his opening and bellows at Selena to launch a fireball straight into the moat. Selena doesn't hesitate. She channels her power and unleashes a blazing orb of fire, aimed perfectly at the unsuspecting Castile and his advancing troops. Castile sees the fire coming and starts cackling, convinced it's a desperate final move. He barks at his mages to rush forward and construct a massive barrier, mocking Ryan's amateur magic. He thinks they are successfully blocking an attack, completely blind to the fact that they are just playing right into Ryan's devious trap. The mages exert every ounce of their remaining mana to hold the shimmering barrier, while Castile sneers, calling Ryan a total idiot for wasting energy. The tension is high, but Ryan just watches with a calm, predatory grin, knowing that their precious barrier is actually keeping them trapped exactly where he wants them. To everyone's shock, the fireball doesn't even touch the barrier. It sails right past them and plunges straight into the moat. Castile bursts into laughter, mocking Ryan for having terrible aim and missing his target by a mile. He's busy patting himself on the back, calling himself the greatest military genius in history. Castile is still high on his own ego, declaring himself the pride of the empire. Then suddenly, the ground beneath them turns into living hell. The moat erupts into a massive, blinding explosion of fire. The celebration dies instantly as his men realize the water they were crossing has turned into a giant liquid bomb. Panic ensues as the river of fire incinerates everything in its path. Castile and his men stare up at the walls, watching Ryan's cold, unbothered expression, and they genuinely begin to think he's a demon sent from the underworld. The sheer scale of the destruction is enough to break any soldier's sanity. The battlefield is now a screaming nightmare of flame and shadow. Castile realizes he's sent all his troops to their deaths, and they are currently being burned to literal cinders. The genius Duke finally crumbles, admitting that Ryan isn't just a strategist, he's an absolute, cold-blooded devil in human form. Ryan, looking utterly bored by the carnage, starts feeling a classic case of post-battle fatigue. He rubs his temples, realizing he's done all the heavy lifting, and decides to hand the cleanup duty over to Selena. He turns his back on the inferno and starts strolling away, ready to call it a day. Castile finally snaps and orders a full retreat, desperate to escape the hellfire. He scrambles back to his camp, but as he arrives, he finds the place eerily empty, not a single guard left. He's perplexed and terrified, wondering where his army disappeared to, then suddenly death drops from the sky. A massive, Heavy sword crashes into the ground, narrowly missing his face and pinning him to the dirt. Castile shrieks, looking up to see a fierce woman warrior standing over him with icy rage in her eyes. Rosalind has arrived, and she's not here for a tea party. She's here to collect some answers. Castile tries to use his status as a Grand Duke to demand respect, but Rosalind isn't having any of it. She pulls out a long, vicious whip, and the air whistles as she begins to deliver some long-overdue customer service to the Duke. He screams as the first lash lands, finally learning that some people just don't care about titles. Rosalind's men are still working Castile over, but the guy just won't stop yapping about his entire army getting turned into human barbecue at the fortress. Rosalind is losing her cool. It's like listening to a broken record that only plays. I was defeated by magic. She demands they keep the pressure on until he stops the nonsense and tells the absolute truth. She calls a tactical timeout to plan the next assault, her mind swirling with elaborate battle formations to lure the enemy out. Suddenly, a rustle in the nearby brush snaps her into high alert. She draws her blade, barking at the hidden intruder to step out right now, unless they want to discover what steel tastes like. To her total shock, the bush part to reveal a group of ethereal, glowing figures. It's Irea and the elven contingent. Rosalind's eyes narrow. She's convinced this is some grand scheme where the elves are playing double agent with the Empire. The air crackles with tension as she begins to unload her verbal arsenal of accusations. The elves are absolutely offended, treating her insults like a stain on their noble reputation, and they prepare to retaliate. Just as the standoff is about to turn into a bloodbath, a shimmering, violet barrier of pure, protective magic surges up between the two parties, putting an immediate, forced pause on the hostilities. The elven queen steps through the magical veil, her presence as cool as moonlight. She calmly tells Rosalind that if they were Ryan's enemies, they'd have already left, but since they are his allies, there's no need for this theatre. Rosalind, still skeptical, demands the kind of proof that only a fool would ignore. Aurora produces a handwritten letter, and the moment Rosalind spots that unique, unmistakable family seal, her face pales. It's a mark that no imposter could ever dream of forging. She decides to trust them, but only under the condition that they are kept on a very, very short, watchful leash from here on out. The Queen just smiles at the threat, perfectly content to be monitored. Behind her, the elven ladies are grumbling about why they're humoring a human who barely trusts her own shadow. The Queen remains cryptic, whispering that if humans were simple enough to trust on a whim, they wouldn't be humans at all. She orders her men to wave their flags high, ensuring Ryan knows that reinforcements have finally arrived. She doesn't want to play hide-and-seek anymore. She wants to charge straight into the heart of the city and find out if the rumors of the Forbidden's magic are actually true. On the city walls, Ryan stands looking over the carnage, sighing with a genuine, heavy sadness. He's truly mourning the loss of so many men who could have been productive workers instead of cooling corpses. Just then, a soldier sprints up, breathless, reporting a cavalry approaching from the horizon. Ryan turns his gaze, but the moment he catches a glimpse of the banner waving in the wind, his world stops. It's the distinct, unmistakable flag of Priscilla, and the sudden realization that his own people have arrived leaves him completely and utterly stunned. Ryan is playing the ultimate salesman of the century, pitching his city project to the elven Queen. She's clinging to her forest traditions, but Ryan is a relentless capitalist. He's betting his reputation that he can convince her to bankroll his industrial dream, refusing to take no for an answer despite her clear skepticism toward human commercial madness. He rants about human ambition, flying machines and submarines. He's describing modern tech to an elf who's only ever known trees. She thinks he's a lunatic, but his sheer, unshakable confidence in these impossible inventions is finally capturing her full attention as she listens to him talk about the potential of the future. He paints a picture of her on a skyscraper looking down at the world with power. It's a culture shock. She's never heard of skyscrapers. But the way he describes the view makes her wonder if humans are secretly pulling some genius strings she never noticed in her centuries of living in the woods? She pauses, staring into her crystal ball to weigh the risks. She's weighing Ryan's commercial dream against the dark, crumbling future she saw in her own visions. She's trying to calculate if this human is her people's long-awaited savior or their ultimate, tragic and inevitable ruin as she stares into the swirling light. She says she needs time to consult her tribe. Ryan bows and accepts the delay gracefully. He hands her a VIP ticket to his damn ceremony, hoping to lure her in with a look at his industry. Just as reports arrive of a wild rider rushing toward the city, Rosalind bursts into the room, breathless and wild, dropping to her knees in desperation. She's apologizing like she failed the kingdom, but Ryan just stares at her, confused by the dramatics. She's ready to die for a guy who's living his best life, and the intensity of her loyalty takes everyone off guard. Ryan finds out his sister sent her and is impressed by her loyalty. She took a brutal detour to ambush the enemy, covering massive distance in just 3 days. He asks how she moved so fast without a railroad system, and she looks back at him like he's speaking an alien language. She explains her family is used to it and apologizes for her uncle's trouble. Ryan, however, just turns on his heel and walks out, leaving her alone in the silence. It's a frustratingly quiet exit that leaves her in a vacuum of anxiety, feeling far worse than any immediate execution could ever be. A day later, she's still sitting there, waiting for the axe to fall. She's spiraling into depression, convinced her family name is ruined. Finally, Ryan walks in, looking far too relaxed for someone who just survived a war. And he decides to end the suspense by addressing her directly. He sees her trembling and decides to end the drama. He looks her dead in the eye and asks, "Are you willing to be one of my people?" The weight of the question turns her face into a deep, burning crimson. She is completely flustered, and her face looks like it's about to combust. Ryan pulls up Rosalind's stats and is honestly blown away by what he sees. Perfect, unsacable 100%. She's got elite sword mastery, and her bravery trait is off the charts. Ryan can't help but grin, realizing he's just struck absolute gold with this powerhouse knight standing right in front of him. Ryan praises her immense talent and asks once more if she's truly ready to serve under him. Rosalind, completely misinterpreting his intentions, bows her head and offers her entire self as compensation for her family's past sins. Ryan's eyes widen in genuine shock as he realizes she's taking this conversation into a dangerously suggestive and totally unintended direction. He tries to clarify his stance, but she's already fully committed to the bit. She kneels, offering to toss away her hard-earned dreams of knighthood just to atone with her own body. Ryan has to scramble to stop her before this gets even more awkward, explaining he only wants a loyal subordinate, not a scandalous office romance. He finally lays it out clearly. She's simply joining his ranks, and nobody is holding her family accountable for anything. As the sudden realization hits that he isn't looking for a plaything, her heart absolutely melts. Being a knight was always her true, lifelong dream, and she accepts the honor with pure, unadulterated joy. She's practically glowing now, ecstatic to serve such a reasonable and capable lord. Ryan, meanwhile, is already back to his usual work routine. He settles into his desk chair, grabs a fresh quill, and starts drafting a formal letter to his sister to report that the border crisis is officially resolved. He writes that Rosalind is an elite, high-value knight and orders his staff to send the letter out immediately. He also insists on attaching a special gold-embossed invitation to his grand dam completion ceremony. He needs to show off his industrial progress while scouting for even more talent to grow his blossoming empire. Ryan is deep in thought, plotting his next talent grab, when his aide suddenly interrupts to ask about the captured Grand Duke. Ryan blinks, completely forgetting the guy even existed. He realizes the antagonist is still rotting in his damp dungeon and decides it's finally time for a little face-to-face interrogation. He descends into the cold, dark dungeon to find Castile looking absolutely furious. The Duke calls him a despicable, arrogant boy, but Ryan just laughs in his face, reminding him exactly who is currently stuck behind bars. They start bickering, with the Duke wildly accusing Ryan of using Forbidden's magic in the heat of battle. Castile insists all Forbidden's magicians are strictly banned from normal wars, claiming Ryan broke the ancient code. Ryan realizes the Duke is just talking about those oil barrel explosions. He finds it genuinely hilarious that the Duke thinks he's visit when he is just a smart guy with great chemistry and better tactical logistics. Ryan tells the Duke he can keep calling it Forbidden's magic if it helps him sleep at night. He pivots to the real question, what is the Orvis Empire actually planning with these attacks? The Duke remains defiant, spewing complete nonsense about why his army keeps crossing the border and testing their defenses. Ryan points out they never actually occupy the land they seize. It's clearly a test, but the Duke refuses to spill the secret behind their mysterious crusades. Ryan leaves the cell with a smug smirk, confident there's a massive conspiracy brewing under the surface. He knows he has to accelerate his industrial plans before things get truly ugly. As he finally turns his back on the prisoner, he walks out of the heavy iron door, already mapping out his next defensive strategy. A few days later, the scene shifts to the capital. Ryan's sister, Priscilla, finally gets her hands on the letter regarding Rosalind. She's relieved the crisis is over and immediately starts pondering what this mysterious dam project mentioned in the letter could possibly be. Priscilla isn't just thinking about engineering, though. She turns to her assistant and orders her to find girls around Rosalind's age immediately. She's on a personal mission to figure out exactly what her little brother's type is, ready to meddle in his love life with professional, royal precision. News of Castile's capture spreads like wildfire, reaching the Emperor of the Orvis Empire. He immediately calls an emergency meeting with his officials to panic about the disaster. They're terrified that Castile is going to leak all their top-secret information to the enemy, turning their entire grand military strategy into an absolute embarrassing joke. The officials start bickering and blaming Castile's impulsiveness. But the Emperor slams his fist down, screaming that he needs solutions, not a room full of crying babies. Someone suggests sending a diplomat to Iceland City for peace negotiations, but the others scoff, refusing to bow down to a trash city. An official named Kraven urges the Emperor to make the right call before their secrets leak out. The Emperor agrees that peace talks are a good cover, but he needs a lead diplomat who is both brave and exceptionally wise. He scans the room, noticing a mysterious silhouette standing confidently in the shadows. Kraven steps up and recommends Welina, the daughter of a disgraced duke who was recently imprisoned for treason. The entire room erupts into pure chaos, calling him insane. But deep down, the Emperor is secretly thrilled because Kraven just nominated the exact pawn he wanted for his twisted game. Kraven lists 3 brilliant reasons for picking her. Her noble status shows sincerity. She is incredibly eloquent, and most importantly, she will work her butt off just to atone for her father's sins and earn a royal pardon. The other officials have no choice but to admit that Kraven is easily the smartest guy in the room. The Emperor hands the mission to Kraven, telling him to ensure the lady's safety. But the moment the public meeting ends, the Emperor sneaks into a dark room to meet with his top assassin. He coldly orders the hitman to murder both Welina and Castile the second they are released. The Emperor plans to use their deaths as the perfect excuse to start a massive world war. Meanwhile, back in Iceland City, the vibe is completely different. Ryan is casually strolling through the sunny streets with Leah, waving like a beloved celebrity while the grateful citizens cheer for him. The locals thank him for giving them a proper human life, but Ryan is actually out on a secret mission. He's scanning every single passerby, trying to find a high-class talent to run his factories. Unfortunately, his system keeps flashing normal person over end, leaving him completely frustrated. He's been doing this talent hunt for 3 days straight with 0 luck. He considers asking his royal siblings for help, but remembers they have their own wars to fight. Plus, His sister just gifted him Rosalind, so he can't exactly complain about being understaffed without looking like a total brat. Leah notices he is completely drained and begs him to take a rest. He complains that his factories can't even start running because the elves haven't sent their money yet. And teaching chemistry to primitive magicians would probably blow up the city. He's so physically exhausted he feels like he's about to faint right on the pavement. Frustrated by the stressful system tasks, Ryan groans and rests his heavy head directly on Leah's soft tummy. She gently strokes his hair and chats with him, trying her best to soothe his massive headache and absorb all the exhaustion from his brutal 3-talent hunt. Suddenly, a loud, chaotic argument down the street catches his attention. A furious merchant is yelling at a self-proclaimed alchemist named Armando. Ryan sighs and scans the loud guy's stats, only for his eyes to pop out as the system screen lights up with legendary attributes. He bursts into a massive grin, realizing his painful search is finally over. Armando is busy getting kicked out of a shop, desperately trying to convince a trader that his insect repellent was actually a top-tier product, not a fruit killer. The shopkeeper isn't buying it, but Ryan, watching from the shadows, is absolutely fascinated. He's found his Gaia walking, talking goldmine of talent. Ryan walks straight up to the kneeling alchemist and tells him he's interested in his gear. Armando's eyes light up. He thinks he's finally reeled in a fat sheep he can overcharge for his cheap potions. He starts pulling out his inventory, wondering just how much gold he can squeeze out of this fancy-looking guy. Armando introduces himself as a reclusive genius alchemist, promising he can whip up any potion too. Satisfy a lord's desires. Ryan just listens, trying to keep a straight face while analyzing the guy's potential, wondering if he's actually a genius or just a really committed con artist. Ryan asks for the price list and Armando starts his sales pitch. He shows off a green bottle for running faster, a yellow one that makes things glow at night, and a very special adult potion for private fun. Leah leans in close, whispering for Ryan to run because all alchemists are professional scammers. Ryan doesn't budge, telling Leah not to worry since he's already seen through the guy's act. Armando keeps bragging, green is for speed, yellow is for glowing, and this one? It'll make your night with the Mrs. Legendary. But Ryan just sighs, bluntly calling his entire collection cheap, low-class junk. Armando is beyond insulted, ready to fight until he sees Leah's terrifying "I'm about to kill you" glare. Ryan then drops the hammer, expertly breaking down the toxic, low-efficiency chemical components in the potions. He even suggests a better recipe using calcium, leaving the alchemist completely stunned. Armando is sweating, demanding to know how a random lord knows his top-secret recipe. Ryan just laughs, calling it basic chemistry, and brutally crushes the guy's ego by pointing out that his secret isn't worth a dime if he can't even afford his next meal. Ryan offers the deal of a lifetime, swear loyalty, and he'll teach him the true way of science. When Leah reveals that Ryan is the city's new lord, Armando's mood instantly sours. He makes a ridiculous face, spitting out insults and declaring he'd rather starve than serve a dog of a nobleman. Armando's hatred for nobles is practically radiating off him. Leah loses her cool and prepares to knock some sense into him, but Ryan stops her. He's seen this kind of bitterness before and decides to let the guy talk, even as the situation gets tenser by the second. Ryan looks Armando in the eye and lays out the final choice. He can either rot away in poverty or learn real chemistry and physics to literally change the world. It's an offer between living like a delusional crank or becoming a legend. The choice is entirely up to him.
Ranting that all nobles are just selfish, parasitic monsters. Ryan watches his loyalty score plummet from a solid 50 all the way down to a pathetic 32. He realizes he's just accidentally speedrun his way into the guy's public enemy #1 list. He really tried to recruit a rare genius, but instead, he's made a bitter enemy. Just as the shouting match reaches a fever pitch, a sweet, innocent voice calls out, "Big brother, it's Yelena, his adorable little sister." Armando instantly switches from raging alchemist to protective big brother, desperately trying to shield her from the wicked noble standing right in front of them. Terrified that Ryan might actually do her some harm, Armando tries to physically drag her away, but Yelena is absolutely not having it. She spots Ryan and runs right up to him with a massive, beaming smile. Armando is utterly horrified, but Yelena just cheers. Mom said our good life is all thanks to Lord Ryan. The alchemist is officially confused, struggling to process why his sister is cozying up to the enemy. Ryan finally realizes Yelena's father was a star worker on his grand dam project, but Armando is stubbornly cynical. He points at her plain, shabby clothes, accusing Ryan of exploiting the poor and keeping them in rags. See, he yells. Nobles never change. They just want to fill their own wallets while everyone else starves in the gutter. Leah and Yelena both start firing back, passionately defending Ryan as the most caring lord in the entire city. Ryan tries to calmly explain the concept of light industry, that soon everyone will be wearing fancy, beautiful clothes, but Armando just rolls his eyes, thinking it's another pathetic fairy tale concocted to distract the gullible commoners from the truth. Armando decides he is absolutely done with this nonsense. He grabs his sister, warns her to watch out for evil, manipulative nobles, and storms off in a fit of rage. Ryan is left standing there, deeply conflicted, knowing he's letting a literal human supercomputer walk away forever just because of a simple, prideful misunderstanding. As Ryan moves to chase after him, a massive, sharp headache strikes his brain like a lightning bolt. His vision blurs instantly, the world spins, and he collapses hard onto the cold ground. The physical and mental stress of his relentless 3-day talent hunt has finally pushed his body past the breaking point, and he's out cold before he even hits the dirt. Ryan wakes up in his cozy castle bed, feeling like he's been run over by a speeding carriage. Leah is hovering over him, looking like she hasn't slept in an entire week. She explains that even though Ryan passed out in the street, someone very unexpected actually came back to check on him. It was Armando himself. Leah says Armando dropped off a mysterious, unlabeled medicine, claiming it would cure Ryan's sudden illness, before vanishing back into the city again. Ryan is completely shocked. The guy hates him, yet he still played the role of the secret doctor. Leah admits she didn't fully trust the mystery potion and had a royal city doctor perform a full lab test first. Ryan inspects the medicine, taking a deep, analytical sniff. He's impressed by the professional quality, planning a full lab test soon. Leah, however, questions his sanity, asking why he's so hell-bent on recruiting a man who openly despises his entire noble class. Ryan just smiles. He knows true, rare talent when he sees it, and he's now personally obsessed with uncovering the dark, painful secret behind Armando's deep-seated grudge against the aristocracy. While Ryan is deep in thought, the scene shifts to a quiet, dimly lit room. We see Armando sitting alone at his cluttered desk, staring at a faded, precious photograph of himself and an older, elegant lady. He cherishes the image, holding it with a look of profound, hidden grief that seems to explain every bit of his hatred. Armando sits alone in the dim light, whispering to a faded photograph of his late mentor, Lysel Grant. She was the city's greatest alchemist, a brilliant, idealistic genius who believed that true science should benefit the common public, not serve the greedy, powerful nobles. He is consumed by a burning obsession to finish her life's work and deliver cold, hard revenge on the bastards who ruined her. Lysel had raised him like her own son, passing down every scrap of knowledge from delicate potion brewing to the construction of complex mechanical devices. But her genius drew the wrong kind of attention. A jealous noble broke in, stole her research, slandered her as a practitioner of forbidden arts, and ultimately ensured her accidental demise 15 years ago. It's a tragic backstory that would break any heart, but Ryan, acting like a pragmatic, somewhat cold-blooded CEO, is strictly focused on utility. He needs to find Armando immediately, and he's currently grilling the local nun, Ira, for intel. He shows zero patience for sentimentality, leaving Ira screaming at him to finally act like a decent human being. Ryan brushes off the moralizing with a sharp tongue, bluntly stating that sympathy doesn't pay the bills or solve his empire's problems. He needs that alchemist found before his industrial plans stall out completely. Ira finally cracks under the pressure and points him toward Lysel's old, abandoned residence, where all her remaining experimental equipment is tucked away. Ryan is desperate to decipher what Lysol was actually building before she was silenced. Ira strains her memory, and the word steam barely escapes her lips before Ryan physically grabs her shoulders, his eyes igniting with pure manic excitement. It's the breakthrough he's been hunting for, the missing piece of his grand industrial puzzle. Ryan is absolutely convinced that Lysol was attempting to build a functional steam engine. In his past life, he might have only glanced at blueprints, but in this magic-filled world, this machine is the holy grail of progress. He's not just looking for a mere toy. He is planning to single-handedly spark the global age of steam and change everything. He drags a bewildered Ira along and arrives at Lysol's dusty, forgotten workshop. Inside, Armando is hunched over his bench, tinkering away, completely oblivious that a high-stakes corporate shark is about to crash his sanctuary. He senses an intruder and frantically hides his project, looking ready to defend his master's precious legacy with his very life. Ryan marches into the workshop like he owns the place, completely ignoring Armando's furious, trembling protests. The alchemist is absolutely livid, desperately trying to block Ryan's path while the Lord cold-bloodedly demands to see the hidden research notes. It's a classic, ruthless corporate takeover, but with much higher stakes and a lot more personal, vengeful hatred involved. Armando is genuinely losing his composure. He whips out a jagged kitchen knife, pointing it directly at Ryan's throat, screaming that he won't let any filthy noble scum lay a finger on his master's research. Leah steps forward, ready to knock him into next week, but Ryan waves her off, totally unbothered by the steel blade held to his chest. Ryan steps closer, ignoring the lethal weapon, and mocks Armando for being an absolute idiot who doesn't understand the true significance of the steam engine. He laughs at the kid for letting such a world-changing invention gather dust in a basement. The tension in the room is suffocating, and the conflict is reaching its breaking point. Armando is fuming, shouting that Ryan couldn't possibly understand the depth of Lysol's work. Ryan just smirks with total confidence. He knows the secret to making that engine roar to life, and he is tired of being polite. He's ready to prove he's the only one alive capable of bringing Lysol's dream into the modern, industrial world. If Ryan can explain the mechanics better than the late master, Armando has to submit and listen. It's a terrifyingly bold gamble, but in this backward world of ignorance, Ryan is ready to show them the real power of modern engineering. Ryan challenges Armando to a high-stakes, life-altering bet. If he can successfully fix Lysol's engine, the alchemist serves him forever without complaint. If he fails, he bows at the grave and leaves the city for good. Armando thinks he's joking, but Ryan is dead serious, putting his entire reputation on the line to prove his genius. Armando is cynical, insisting Ryan lacks the insight to even identify the parts, let alone fix a legendary engine. But the bet is sealed. Ryan is already prepping his factory empire, imagining the alchemist as his head researcher. He's incredibly eager to finally see what Lysol left behind for him to tinker with. They arrive at the dusty workshop, and Ryan yanks the heavy cloth off the device with a flourish. His jaw drops. It's a genuine, classic steam engine. He hugs the cold metal frame like a brother, declaring that Lysol was a true visionary. Armando stands tall, proud that his master was a pioneer, unlike the greedy alchemists who chase empty clout. Armando admits he's guarded the house for years but hasn't a clue how to operate it because the notes were incomplete. Ryan immediately starts prepping to tear it down for a full mechanical inspection. Armando screams in frantic protest, terrified that Ryan will break his master's precious life's work into useless, unrepairable, and tragic scraps. Ryan scoffs, telling him there isn't a single machine in the universe he can't fix. He demands a screwdriver, but Armando stares back, completely clueless about the tool. Ryan is baffled by how the alchemist managed to maintain this complex piece of technology for so long without even knowing what basic hand tools were used for. Tired of the sass, Ryan snatches Leah's dagger to start unscrewing the housing. He's impressed by Lysol's beautiful internal design, but as he digs deeper, he notices some empty, highly suspicious mounting points. His excitement shifts to confusion, then a sudden, sharp, and terrifying realization of what exactly is missing. Ryan meticulously uses the sharp blade, prying at the rusted bolts with surgical precision. He works with intense, calculated focus, finally forcing the outer casing to pop open and exposing the inner core chamber, where he spots the catastrophic flaw in the assembly. Ryan stares at the empty, gaping slot and finally understands why it isn't working. He grabs Armando by the collar, furious and yelling that he knows a core engine part is missing, the critical ancient piece that actually regulates the entire machine's power flow and ignition system. Armando finally confesses the bitter, gut-wrenching truth: a local big-shot noble stole the parts, when that absolute idiot discovered the components were forged from dragon crystal ore. He didn't even put them to use, he melted them down to build a tacky, oversized statue of himself. Ryan absolutely loses his cool. He's shaking with raw, murderous rage, unable to fathom how someone could destroy world-changing, priceless technology just to satisfy their own pathetic, bloated ego. The air in the room turns freezing cold as he demands the name of this absolute, irredeemable moron. Ryan stares Armando down, forcing him to spill the name. He is finished with the bureaucratic nonsense and ready to hunt down the person responsible. Whether they are a high-ranking duke or a prince, Ryan is going to make sure they regret ever melting down his precious steam core for a vanity project. Armando spills the beans. The guy who melted his master's dreams into a tacky statue is Duke Oscar. Aura is terrified, explaining Oscar is a pet project of the Emperor, essentially untouchable. But Ryan, he's not impressed. He just wants to know exactly where this great duke keeps his stash so he can plan a little corporate retaliation. The Duke's territory is in Grancel, a region currently under Grand Duke Teleros Elroy. Ryan's dad and Elroy are political rivals who spend their time fighting in the Imperial Council like children in a sandbox. Ryan doesn't care about their petty feuds, he just adds Oscar to his personal to-punish list. Leah notes that Grancel falls under Grand Duke Teleros Elroy's jurisdiction, putting it outside the reach of the Edgar family. Ryan recalls his father mentioning that relations with Elroy were frosty at best, as they clash constantly in the Imperial Council over their fundamentally different, deeply rooted political views and ideologies. Ryan decides to shelf the political drama for now, though he makes it crystal clear that Duke Oscar has been officially added to his black book. He promises to make Oscar regret ever melting down those gears. Ira is clearly worried, warning Ryan that confronting a high-ranking duke is a reckless, suicidal move. Ryan scoffs at the danger, insisting that he doesn't care about the risk because Oscar dared to destroy a priceless, world-changing invention. Armando is absolutely stunned that Ryan is seriously considering a direct, head-on confrontation with a duke. Ryan just tells him not to worry, promising to show the world its true value. Ryan asks if Lysol's notebook contains any core designs. Armando admits it doesn't, but finally mentions that she discussed the production of the engine parts with a master dwarf craftsman who lives in Arby. Ryan pats Armando on the shoulder, confident he can force the dwarf to talk. Armando is skeptical, knowing the dwarf has a notoriously short temper. Sure enough, as soon as they arrive at the workshop, the dwarf tells them to get lost immediately because he has zero interest in chatting with them. Ira tries to reason with the dwarf, Bram, explaining that Ryan has done much for the city, but Bram remains unmoved. He dismisses Ryan's accomplishments as basic duties any lord should fulfill. He just doesn't care about the hype. Then, he snaps and orders them out, refusing to build such things. Ryan steps in, agreeing with Bram that a lord is indeed expected to manage his territory well. He tells the grumpy craftsman that his very reason for visiting is to fulfill his duty to his people. This frank, sharp honesty finally catches Bram's attention, and he begrudgingly agrees to hear what the lord has to say. Ryan asks Bram to build the gears for the steam engine. The moment Bram realizes what Ryan is after, he explodes in anger again. He refuses to help, claiming that those very gears were the reason Lysol was targeted and killed. He's not building that death trap again. Bram blames himself for telling Lysol she needed dragon crystal ore for safety, which put a target on her back. He is determined never to forge such a thing again. Armando snaps back, scolding the dwarf for having a double standard, arguing that a blacksmith's job is to create. Bram insists the gear won't work even with the ore, but Ryan is curious about the insistence on dragon crystal. When Bram confirms it's the only material, Ryan laughs, claiming that a master craftsman shouldn't need such rare materials, and he plans to use simple, common iron ore instead to build it. Bram scoffs, claiming only the legendary ancient dragon race could ever liquefy ordinary iron ore. Ryan's eyes light up. He's finally cracked the code of this backward world. He realizes the locals are clueless about thermodynamics. And he's about to drop a masterclass in science that will leave this dwarf absolutely speechless. Ryan coolly asks if the reason they can't melt iron is that their furnace technology is stuck in the Stone Age. Bram retorts that no furnace on the continent can handle such a task. Ryan just smirks, betting his reputation that he can build a furnace that melts iron like butter. Leaving the dwarf baffled by his sudden. Ryan makes a deal. If he builds a furnace that liquefies iron, Bram must forge the parts. Bram, convinced he's dealing with a pampered brat, agrees to the terms. Then storms out to give Ryan space to fail miserably in his absurd, doomed, and potentially workshop-destroying experiment. Ryan inspects the sad excuse for a furnace. It's a total disaster, no secondary oxygens applied, no efficiency, just pure incompetence. He grabs a heavy mallet, eyes the structure with professional disdain, and prepares to initiate some aggressive upgrades that will make the workshop look like a battlefield for progress, ignoring the bewildered, fearful stares from his onlookers. The hammer comes down hard. Crack. Ryan explains the concept of forced air and combustion efficiency to his confused, trembling companions. He knows that once these ventilation holes are properly positioned, the internal temperature will skyrocket enough to melt the stubbornest iron ore on this entire continent, proving that science always triumphs over unrefined tradition. Bram returns to find his life's work looking like a piece of Swiss cheese. He is livid, ready to throw hands, screaming about the years of effort he poured into those bricks. Ryan just waves a hand, telling him to calm down and trust the process, because the real show is about to start. Bram is convinced Ryan has lost his mind, rambling on about how hard iron is and how this ruined furnace will be even colder. He's itching to beat Ryan to a pulp. But Ryan dares him to add the fuel. It's the ultimate high-stakes bet, modern science versus stubborn pride in a trial by fire. The fire roars to life. Bram and his entourage hover over the furnace, squinting into the heat, watching intently as the metal begins to glow with an intense and natural ferocity. They are dead silent, realizing their entire understanding of physics is being rewritten by the Lord who they thought was just a spoiled noble. The impossible happens. The iron ore collapses into molten liquid, flowing perfectly. Bram's jaw hits the floor. He's staring at his furnace as if it's a portal to another dimension. Ryan just wipes his hands triumphant, as he watches his theory turn into a glowing, molten reality. The result is undeniable. The molten iron pools at the base of the furnace, proving the modified design works beyond anyone's expectations. Bram fears Duke Oscar's retaliation, but Ryan brushes it off with a cold smirk. He tells the dwarf he has nothing to fear if the Duke doesn't come looking for trouble. Ryan will personally hunt him down and settle the score once and for all. Bram finally finishes those intricate, heavy-duty gears, and Ryan is practically vibrating with sheer, unadulterated joy. He holds the core like it's the legendary Holy Grail. Grinning like a brilliant madman, he knows this isn't just a hunk of cold, processed metal. It's the tiny spark that's going to ignite the entire industrial era, finally leaving this dusty, magical, backwater world in the dust. Leah and Aurora are hovering nearby like extremely worried mothers, nagging Ryan about whether these primitive parts can actually handle the intense, high-pressure steam. Ryan just laughs off their constant concerns. He knows Lysel failed because she was merely guessing, while he is armed with the cold, hard, and undeniable logic of modern, high-level science. Ryan completely ignores Armando's grumbling about his late teacher, coolly telling the kid to stop whining and prepare to become his most productive subordinate. The tension in the workshop is thick, but Ryan isn't interested in personal drama, he is only interested in results. He slides the final gear into the core with a loud, satisfying click, ready to show them a real, physical miracle. Vroom! The massive engine suddenly roars to life, spitting out thick black smoke like a chain-smoking dragon. The silence that follows is absolutely deafening. Aura is totally floored, eyes wide as saucers, while Armando is a sobbing, emotional mess, staring at his master's legacy finally breathing and functioning again. It is a moment of pure, raw engineering triumph. Armando is completely lost in the swirling mists of the past. He remembers his master's trembling, tired hands and her dying desperate wish to make this machine work for the common good of humanity, the vivid memory of her instructions, the specific way she coupled the parts floods his mind entirely. He is not just a student anymore, he's witnessing history being rewritten right here. Tears stream uncontrollably down Armando's face as he kneels before the machine, whispering soft, heartbreaking prayers to his master in the heavens. It's an emotional breakdown that would surely melt a heart of stone. Ryan, ever the pragmatist, tells the elf to just let the kid cry it out. Repressed trauma is, after all, simply bad for daily productivity and long-term focus. 3 hours later, Bram is back, staring at the smoking beast with total, unadulterated confusion. It just makes smoke, kid. Is this your grand miracle? Ryan sighs deeply. Realizing he has to put on his professor hat once again, he prepares to explain that this machine is not a fancy, oversized toaster. Ryan starts his Industrial Revolution for Dummies lecture. He explains that this steam engine can power giant mills, complex looms, and even heavy war machines, making everything else look like a pathetic child's toy. The group listens in total awe, their faces showing the slow, agonizing realization that their entire world is about to be completely and irreversibly turned upside down. Ryan feels like he's on top of the world until Rosalind suddenly rushes into the workshop, looking frantic. She catches her breath and finally delivers the news. His sister, the formidable Priscilla, has just arrived in the city. Rosalind then mentions a special gift from his sister. Ryan starts dreaming of mountains of shiny gold, only for Rosalind to drop the hammer. It isn't gold, but a group of 18-year-old girls who have just come of age. Ryan stands there in utter shock, wondering if his ears are malfunctioning. He wanted cold, hard gold, not this massive, social, and logistical headache. Rain strolls back into the grand, echoing halls of his castle and immediately runs into his sister, Priscilla. They share an unexpectedly sweet, nostalgic moment, genuinely admitting how much they've truly missed each other. But Rain quickly kills the vibe, demanding to know why his peaceful home is suddenly crawling with a dozen wide-eyed debutantes who won't stop staring at him like he's a piece of prime meat. Priscilla just teases him with a devious smirk, asking if he's struggling with his bachelor life or if the girls simply aren't his type. Rain scoffs, insisting that's not the issue at all. The real, soul-crushing headache is the judgmental way his own staff looks at him. He's terrified they think he's a total, unrepentant creep, which is absolutely ruining his hard-earned reputation. Rain is sweating absolute bullets, convinced that beneath her icy, professional mask, Leah has pegged him as a shameless, wandering-eyed pervert for bringing all these women into his home. He complains loudly that Leah's expression has turned deathly cold. He remembers her as the gentle, supportive type, but now she's giving him a look that could freeze a fire-breathing dragon solid. Priscilla just grins, clearly enjoying the absolute chaos, and casually mentions that Leah only acts that way because she cares far too much about his romantic life. Rain is totally mortified, feeling like his sister just poured gallons of gasoline on a roaring fire. Seeing him unravel, she finally decides to stop the games and pulls out the damning evidence of his supposed request. Rain is stunned, frantically demanding to know what secret message she's referring to. Priscilla casually whips out the letter he sent, the one that mentioned Rosalind. It turns out she completely misread his intentions, acting on what she thought was a desperate, lonely plea for romantic options and future marriage prospects. Rain can't believe her hallucinated dating pool. Leah, standing nearby, tries desperately to keep her cool, stammering that she's just a lowly servant with no right to comment on her lord's wives. But as the tension hits the ceiling, she stands there, rigid and trembling. Suddenly, Priscilla drags him away, and the sanctuary of his private office. The air is thick with palpable, awkward tension. They finally drop the act to discuss the fallout of this massive, hilarious, and unintended social disaster. Rain sighs heavily, trying to clear his head, while Priscilla just looks thoroughly amused by how much she's managed to ruin his social life in just a few short minutes. Sitting in the dim office, Rain suddenly zones out, completely overwhelmed by the sheer absurdity of his situation. He stares blankly at the wall, his mind drifting away from the complex noble drama and his ambitious industrial projects. He feels a strange, detached sense of confusion, as if he's watching his own life unfold from a distant, invisible perspective. It suddenly hits him like a jagged bolt of lightning. He's been so buried in the suffocating political drama of this world that he's completely forgotten his own past identity. The crushing, heavy weight of his previous life as a modern, ordinary man comes crashing back into his consciousness, and for one brief, agonizing moment, he is utterly paralyzed by the sheer, bitter irony of his current, noble situation. He finally realizes he is nothing more than a total stranger trapped in a bizarre, magical land. He's just a man from a completely different, civilized era trying to play the part of a powerful noble lord, and he is clearly, hopelessly out of his depth. He just sits there in the heavy, oppressive silence, deeply processing the shocking fact that he was once just a regular, boring guy before he tragically ended up in this chaotic, nonsensical fantasy mess. Rain frantically shakes off the lingering, existential dread, knowing he has to pull himself together before he completely loses his mind. He still desperately needs to industrialize this backward world and somehow deal with his sister's bizarre, chaotic gifts. He stands up with a weary sigh, ready to face the music, knowing full well that his life as a lord is going to be anything but quiet, peaceful, or remotely normal from this fateful day forward. Rain seizes the golden opportunity, finally telling his sister that he has a specific, ambitious plan where he desperately needs her support. Priscilla is genuinely surprised. She thought her brother was doing just fine. But he immediately pivots to the topic of investing in himself. He needs her help to turn his crumbling, dusty city into an industrial powerhouse of the future. Priscilla raises an elegant eyebrow, playfully mocking him for asking for more resources when he just squeezed the corrupt city nobles dry. Rain sighs, explaining that he isn't looking for cold gold, he's hunting for talent. The city's population is decimated by years of war, and he needs skilled craftsmen, savvy farmers, and sharp administrators to actually get things moving. Rain promises he won't take them for free, he'll provide well and ensure they learn the latest, world-changing technology. Priscilla admits the plan sounds brilliant. But she's not about to hand over her territory's pillars just for fun. She demands real results, asking if she looks like a simple charity worker to him. The tone shifts entirely as Priscilla turns to her loyal secretary, Gwen. She's finally dropping the supportive sister mask to express her true, simmering rage. The Emperor poisoned Rain, permanently blocking him from practicing martial arts. And she is absolutely not going to let that slide. She tells Gwen to track down the prince and pick the weakest target for retaliation. Priscilla is practically vibrating with cold, lethal fury, declaring that no one touches her precious brother and walks away unscathed. Gwen nods, fully on board, assuring her that everything will be handled with surgical, quiet precision. The loyalty here is terrifying. But it's exactly what a lord needs when plotting to dismantle an empire. Gwen agrees that Rain is intelligent and hardworking, but Priscilla's mind is elsewhere, firmly fixed on a path of dark vengeance. She makes it clear that the Emperor is on her hit list. With the political maneuvering settled in the shadows, the scene abruptly shifts to the darker, grittier, and more dangerous reality of the thick forest. Deep in the dark, tangled woods, a band of lowlife human traffickers is hauling their merchandise through the trees. They're busy whining about how their boss, Eldrick, takes the biggest cut while they do all the filthy work. One thug complains that the risk is all theirs, yet the massive profit is somehow all his. Their scout suddenly bursts in with panicked, breathless news. The city's leadership has changed, and Eldrick is officially out. The boss is absolutely furious, demanding immediate answers. And the scout explains that the city gates were guarded by total strangers who weren't taking any bribes. The entire operation is crumbling faster than a cheap, forgotten house of cards. The thugs argue over whether to retreat, but the boss snaps they've already promised these girls to Duke Oscar for a massive, life-changing payday. If they don't deliver, they're dead meat. He decides they'll pose as normal, harmless merchants and try to sneak the rest of the slaves in small, stealthy, and inconspicuous batches. The boss is confident that no man is immune to a bribe if you throw enough shining gold at them. He decides to stay the night in the forest to rethink their strategy. Little do they know, this quiet rest stop is about to be the biggest, most fatal mistake of their pathetic criminal careers. As the moon climbs high, the mood shifts from greedy plotting to pure, disgusting depravity. One of the thugs suggests they take advantage of the captured women since they're stuck in the middle of now. Here, the boss, always the biggest scumbag of the lot, agrees but claims the red-headed girl for himself. 2/10. The thugs are laughing, grabbing the girls and dragging them toward a nearby cave like absolute and feeling animals. They're busy imagining their twisted, vile fantasies, completely unaware that their luck has just run out. The silence of the forest is about to be shattered by a very different, very dangerous kind of visitor. The scumbags start closing in on the girls, their greedy, calloused hands reaching out, ready to commit their truly vile act. It seems like the perfect, twisted setup for their villainous victory, but just as they are about to strike, the atmosphere abruptly shifts. The air suddenly grows heavy and suffocating, filled with a murderous, freezing, and soul-chilling intent that stops them dead in their tracks. A cold, commanding voice cuts through the thick darkness like a razor-sharp guillotine, demanding they stop immediately. The thugs freeze in terror, turning around to find Rosalind standing there, her eyes burning with an intense, lethal desire to tear them limb from limb. The predator has finally become the prey, and she is clearly not in any mood for mercy tonight. Her cold-blooded intensity, the thugs, not knowing who they are dealing with, try to tease her. Thinking she's just another piece of scenery, Rosalind isn't in the mood for games. She stares them down, unimpressed by their pathetic attempts at intimidation. The leader laughs, hilariously blind to the impending danger, while Rosalind calmly scans their ragged ranks, noting their sloppy posture and utter lack of discipline. She keeps her cool, though she definitely notices one particular knight in the back row who actually has a surprisingly decent physique. Honestly, what a tragic waste of such good, strong genetics on a bunch of common, brainless thugs like these. The cheap teasing stops abruptly when Rosalind decides their collective skull-to-blunt object ratio badly needs some aggressive adjustment. She swings her iron spear with lightning-fast surgical precision, instantly splitting a bandit's head like a ripe, overwatered melon. The carnage is immediate and visceral, and the rest of the gang finally realizes with pure, unadulterated horror that they've just poked a very lethal and angry bear. Chaos erupts as the survivors scramble desperately for their lives, sprinting back toward their boss's main tent like a herd of frightened, clumsy toddlers. They aren't looking for a heroic rematch anymore, they are just looking for a miracle to save their sorry hides. Rosalind tracks them down like a shadow, turning their retreat into a chaotic, screaming scramble across the dark and even forest floor. The arrogant boss struts out, screaming at Rosalind to stop, but she's only just getting warmed up for the main course. He tries to play the pathetic diplomatic card, asking why she's attacking them when they've done nothing wrong. Rosalind just points a bloodied, accusing finger at the terrified kidnapped girls, mocking his blatant, spineless attempt at playing the victim after all their crimes. Thinking he finally has a massive trump card, the leader dramatically flourishes an official, wax-sealed letter signed by Duke Oscar, expecting the Duke's noble seal to scare her off. He doesn't realize that in Rain's territory, the name Oscar isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card, it's actually just a massive, glowing, and very flammable please kick me sign for anyone with a brain. Rosalind remembers Rain's colorful instructions: keep a sharp eye out for any of Oscar's lackeys, and feel free to cause as much trouble as possible. She lets out a dark, wicked, and thoroughly satisfied grin. The leader tries to bribe her with piles of stolen gold, but she's already decided his head is worth far more to her than his dirty, blood-stained coins. Rosalind warns them to kneel or face the consequences, but the leader's ego is simply far too inflated for his own good. He calls her degrading names and insists that she's outnumbered and doomed. He fails to realize that a swarm of noisy gnats is still just a swarm of gnats, even if they have a very loud, very stupid, and very soon-to-be-dead leader. Completely done with the mindless banter, Rosalind spins her spear, creating a beautiful, lethal blur of motion. The leader, foolishly thinking he actually has a fighting chance, charges forward with a pathetic, telegraph strike. It's the last mistake he ever makes. She swats his weapon aside with the effortless, casual grace of a grandmaster flicking away a common, buzzing housefly. She follows up with a brutal kick to the leader's chest, sending him crashing into the dirt like a bag of rocks. With her spear point at his neck, she promises the thugs a painful end. Just then, the thundering sound of hooves breaks the tension as Rosalind's elite troops arrive, instantly surrounding the terrified survivors. The mess is finally cleaned up, and it's time to head home. Back at the castle, Rosalind marches straight into the office to deliver the triumphant news. Rain is delighted she captured the caravan, but he's absolutely furious about the slave trade involvement as he reads the incriminating letter. The reality hits home. The real, brutal war for his city has begun. Rain stands up, his eyes cold as steel, and growls that these vultures are daring to snatch away the very labor force he is so desperately trying to cultivate. Those people are the heart of his city's future, and he will make Oscar pay every drop of gold for touching them. Rain storms into the dungeon, ice colder than a winter morning. The bandit leader, still wearing a smug, idiot grin, tries to warn him about big trouble with Duke Oscar. He mocks Rain, telling him to bow down if he wants to survive, blissfully unaware that he's just signed his own death warrant in Rain's favorite prison. Rain barely blinks, effortlessly tearing down the leader's delusion that Oscar's protection means anything within these walls. The thug spills the beans about their massive slave trade routes to the Orvis Empire. Thinking he's flexing his influence, he has no idea that every word he says is just piling up more reasons for Rain to bury him alive. The leader continues his pathetic taunting, demanding Rain beg for information about the hidden girls. Rain finally stops playing nice and leans in, whispering that the guy's life now belongs to him. He makes it crystal clear, continue being stubborn, and the only mercy he'll receive is a permanent, one-way ticket to 6 feet underground. The thug is still too dense to realize he's finished. Rain loses patience and signals Leah to handle the negotiations. She doesn't hesitate. She hurls a dagger with perfect aim, pinning the guy's shoulder to the wall. The scream is music to our ears, and he instantly caves, begging for his life. The broken leader spills the location, an abandoned hunter's cabin in the southern forest. Rain immediately orders Rosalind to assemble the cavalry for a raid. He stares into the darkness, hoping the guy isn't lying, because if this is a trap, the miserable fate he promised will look like a holiday compared to the hell Rain is ready to unleash. The squad soon arrives at the desolate cabin, surrounded by nothing but eerie, suffocating silence and shifting shadows. Rosalind eyes the perimeter carefully and confirms the place is definitely occupied. Proving the rat didn't lie for once, Rain commands a tactical ambush, ready to crush whoever is hiding inside like the absolute garbage they are. Rosalind kicks the rotting door in, and they find the cramped place crawling with frightened, caged victims. Just as the mission seems to be going smoothly, the heavy air hums with a lethal, hidden intent. The trap has clearly been sprung, and the hunters have officially become the hunted in this dark, woodsy tomb. Suddenly, a razor-sharp arrow whistles through the air, aimed directly at Rosalind's head. With reflexes faster than a viper, she slices the flying arrow in half. Shouting for the stunned cavalry to form a defensive wall around Rain, the deadly assassins emerge from the gloom, surrounding them in a claustrophobic, tightening circle. The assassin leader steps forward, putting on a fake display of diplomacy, claiming he doesn't want any unnecessary violence. Rosalind is absolutely ready to tear his throat out, but Rain holds her back. He wants to hear exactly what this walking disaster has to say before he finishes him off for good. The scumbag starts bragging about his lucrative career selling innocent slaves for Duke Oscar for years. He's so completely wrapped up in his own greed and arrogance that he doesn't even notice Rain's expression darkening into a terrifying mask of pure, unadulterated, and lethal intent. He tries to bribe Rain with a cut of the profits and even offers to throw in some delicious high-quality girls as a free bonus. The offer is so repulsive that the air feels thick with disgust. Rain shocks everyone by leaning in and coldly asking, "So, how much exactly are you willing to give me?" Everyone freezes. Did he just take the bait? The assassin offers a generous 10,000 gold coins annually for Rain's cooperation. Rain looks genuinely, almost hilariously offended, asking if he looks like a pathetic beggar to him. He then drops a casual, devastating bomb. His own sister hands him more than that every single month just for his casual pocket money. Rain then calmly names his actual price, 100,000 gold coins, every single month. The assassin leader is utterly flabbergasted, eyes widening in disbelief. He thinks this is a sick joke, as his entire yearly operation doesn't even make that kind of money. Rain just sighs with pure disappointment, signaling that the negotiation is dead before the swords are even unsheathed for battle. Panic setting in, the assassin tries to stall, blubbering about needing to report back to the Duke. He is secretly plotting to bring an entire army back to wipe Rain and his men off the map. He desperately offers 10,000 gold as a good faith deposit to save his own skin. But Rain isn't buying this cheap, bargained-in discount store offer. Rain refuses the offer with a cold, piercing stare and snaps his fingers, ordering Rosalind to turn these arrogant clowns into literal human baskets. The assassins realize their puny lives are on the line and scramble toward the mountains like headless chickens. Rosalind signals the archers, and a relentless, terrifying rain of arrows descends upon them. Desperate to survive the deadly volley, the assassin leader frantically weaves a shimmering water barrier to deflect the incoming arrows. It's a flashy, expensive trick. But it only gives Rosalind the perfect opportunity to close the distance and attempt to slice him in two. He suddenly realizes he's completely outmatched and heading for a very shallow, very cold grave. Trapped and cornered, the leader realizes his entire crew is going to be wiped out unless he does something incredibly reckless. He spots Rain standing in the distance, unguarded, and hits upon a desperate, idiotic plan. If he can just grab the master as a hostage, he might actually walk out of here alive. He sprints toward Rain, shouting frantically for his boys to provide cover. The troops scramble to protect their leader, but the scene is a chaotic mess of steel and screams. Just as the assassin thinks he's finally got the upper hand and lunges with his blade, the world suddenly goes blurry for him. He closes the distance rapidly, eyes locked onto Rain with murderous intent. Rosalind urges everyone to be careful and orders the troops to form a wall. But the assassin has already breached the inner circle, just as he is about to push his blade deep into Rain. The world suddenly goes blurry for him. Out of nowhere, Leah appears beside Rain, moving faster than light, and punches the assassin into the distant shadows. He crashes hard into the dirt, leaving a massive cloud of dust in his wake. He clutches his head in absolute frustration, finally realizing this maid is no ordinary servant. Dazed and coughing up blood, the leader stubbornly tries to scramble back onto his feet, refusing to accept defeat. He attempts another desperate, reckless move to take Rain down, but Leah anticipates his path and intercepts him midair with a brutal, bone-shattering kick exactly 4 seconds later. He crashes heavily back into the dirt in blinding pain, his pride and ribs completely shattered by her overwhelming strength. Lying paralyzed in the freezing mud, broken but refusing to surrender, the assassin leader glares up at Rain with pure, seething malice burning in his eyes. He patiently waits for the perfect, fleeting moment while the surrounding troops close the net to apprehend him. Spotting a tiny, fatal gap in their defensive line, he slides a hidden dagger into his palm, gripping it tightly as he prepares a desperate, final counterattack. Absolute panic immediately erupts across the battlefield. The girls scream his name in sheer terror and completely break their protective formation, rushing to his side in a frantic, in coordinated frenzy. The assassin leader gleefully smiles, realizing this chaotic opening is his perfect golden ticket to escape. Rosalind frantically barks orders at the remaining troops to surround Rain, escorting him away safely while shouting for Leah to immediately bandage his bleeding wounds. But when she turns around to check on them, her blood runs cold. The assassin leader has completely vanished into the dark woods, and Leah has mysteriously disappeared into thin air, leaving Rosalind standing alone, utterly baffled by the ghost-like escape. The arrogant assassin leader pants heavily as he frantically sprints through the rugged, shadowed mountains, desperately looking over his shoulder while hoping to reach the safety of Duke Oscar alive. He keeps running in absolute, breathless panic, totally unaware that his carefully planned escape route has already been completely compromised by a highly dangerous, unexpected player. Just as he thinks he is completely home free, he practically trips over Priscilla, who is just standing there looking absolutely fabulous and calm, as if she has been patiently waiting for him to show up all day long. The dude tries his best to stay composed, foolishly thinking this elegant, beautiful noble lady poses zero threat to his seasoned criminal life. However, the very moment Priscilla politely introduces herself with a brilliant smile, she casually mentions that the terrifying elite army he just fought actually belongs entirely to her little broth, Rain. The guy instantly turns pale and almost wets his pants, suddenly realizing he has accidentally provoked a monstrously powerful family he can never hope to defeat. Suddenly, the surrounding temperature drops down to below freezing as a very familiar, terrifying maid steps out from the darkness right behind his back. Leah glares at his face with so much raw, explosive animosity that it sends a violent, icy shiver straight down the assassin's crooked spine, freezing him in place. She coldly informs him that his survival permit has officially expired, simply because he made the fatal, catastrophic mistake of scratching her beloved master's precious arm back there. The miserable thug drops to his knees in the dirt, sobbing loudly and begging for his life. But Leah is completely done talking to this garbage. For the first time ever in front of others, she completely unleashes her terrifying, hidden magical powers, casually lifting the screaming assassin high into the dark sky with her mind, cutting off his oxygen supply entirely, before he can even process what is happening to his body. The dude literally explodes into a million tiny bits, Leah does not even let a single drop of his dirty blood touch her dress, effortlessly popping up a glowing magical barrier to keep her maid uniform looking completely pristine and spotless. After wiping him from existence, Leah rushes off to tend to Rain. Priscilla then smirks and calls out to her hidden, loyal guard. Gwen steps right out of a secret pocket dimension with a serious expression. They share a quick, playful tease about marrying Gwen off to Rain in the future, making her stoic face turn a delightful shade of bright red. Priscilla then orders a harsh warning sent to Oscar, telling him to stop being so bold just because he is currently jobless. Back safely inside the Grand Castle, the intense mood completely shifts into a cozy, slightly dramatic domestic scene. Leah is tenderly checking Rain's injured arm, her face filled with intense, exaggerated concern. Rain is busy having a very sweet, romantic moment with his overly worried maid when the peaceful atmosphere of the medical room is violently shattered into pieces. Priscilla suddenly kicks the wooden door wide open, dramatically rushing into the room to loudly yell and check on the condition of her severely injured little brother. Rain's bedside with great dramatic flair, her eyes wide with panic as she loudly asks if this dangerous shoulder injury will completely ruin all of his future grand plans. Rain just chuckles softly at her intense reaction, trying his best to reassure his overly anxious older sister that it is absolutely nothing more than a tiny, harmless scratch. However, Leah strongly begs to differ with his casual attitude, pointing out with a terrifyingly serious face that if the flying dagger had been just half an inch off, it would have pierced his heart instantly. Priscilla violently nods her head in agreement with the angry maid, strictly warning her brother that his life is definitely not a joke. Rain is then forced to explain the whole complicated story to them. Rosalind captured some bandits, discovered a secret slave trade ring hidden deep in the forest, and a massive fight broke out after negotiations failed because of the pitch-black environment and chaos. He simply couldn't see the incoming dagger in time. Priscilla is utterly furious to hear this shocking news, as slave trading is strictly forbidden in the Edgar family territory. And Leah immediately drops another bomb. These bandits actually work for Duke Oscar, Rain admits. He went in confidently because the corrupt Eldrick was acting as his inside informant all along. Priscilla deeply admires his thoughtfulness, realizing her little brother is quickly growing into a true leader who genuinely cares about his citizens. Seeing that he needs proper rest, she sweetly tells him she's leaving him in Leah's capable hands now. Leah instantly pledges her absolute loyalty, swearing to protect her master with her entire life, ensuring no one ever dares to touch a single hair on his head again without facing her ultimate wrath. Priscilla gracefully steps out of the quiet medical room into the hallway, where a worried Gwen is already waiting to ask for a health update. Priscilla assures her it's just a minor injury, though she is still privately fuming that anyone dared to harm her precious brother. She instantly calls out to her shadow guard Nox, who suddenly materializes right out of the dark, freezing air of the corridor. She immediately summons Nox from the shadows, commanding him to sneak into the darkest corner of the dungeon to interrogate the captive bandit leader. She strictly orders him to keep the rat alive for Rain's future questioning. The next morning arrives, and an extremely proud Armando finally shows up in Rain's sunny office. Armando stands proudly, pleading his absolute loyalty to the young lord. Rain can't help but mischievously tease him, loudly reminding him of how he once dramatically swore he would rather die than ever serve a corrupt noble. Armando is utterly stunned by Rain's childish, mocking behavior, unable to believe this clown is his master. Even though Rain is acting like a complete clown right now, Armando's loyalty numbers magically skyrocket from a measly 30 to all the way up to a whopping 95. Rain celebrates internally with a wide, villainous smirk, secretly rubbing his hands together with absolute glee, plotting to ruthlessly work this poor, naive alchemist to death in his brand new factory. Armando strictly tells him to stop fooling around and get serious, asking if there is an actual task for him. Rain proudly announces that he is now the newly appointed director of the city workshop, officially registering him as the system's second unlocked talent. Rain then hands over a highly classified, mind-blowing blueprint. He explains that once the Grand Dam is completed, these blueprints will officially spark the glorious dawn of the city's industrialization. Armando stares at the genius designs in absolute breathless awe, wondering if Rain is actually smarter than his own master. When Rosalind suddenly crashes through the heavy wooden door with a completely pale face, Rain and his heavily armed elite royal guards hurry down into the deep, damp, freezing palace dungeon, only to find the bandit leader's body already lying completely stiff and cold on the dirty stone floor. Rosalind explains with a sigh that a terrified guard discovered the messy corpse while merely trying to bring the helpless prisoner a fresh cup of clean water. As Rain slowly approaches the lifeless body, he suddenly spots a creepy, glowing magic glyph etched deeply into the stone wall right above the corpse. Curiously asking his team if anyone can translate its hidden meaning, Selena steps forward, immediately waving her staff to analyze the lingering mana, and confirms it is a wicked curse. Leah instantly panics and begs her master to get out of this filthy cell immediately, claiming dark mages are toxic trash whose residual energy could make his body sick. Rain takes her dramatic warning with a huge pinch of salt, but Selena firmly backs her up, explaining how incredibly deadly these hidden shadows can be. Selena warns that these hidden dark mages can casually trigger massive disasters like deadly plagues, making Rain wonder if they are secretly studying biology. After successfully escaping the foul cell, Rain visits the local orphanage to personally introduce himself to the rescued girls. Rain charismatically presents them with two very clear choices for their future: either honestly tell him where their families live so he can safely send them home, or stay here in the city as his loyal subjects, where he will gladly provide them with good jobs, free education, and comfortable lodging. However, a heavy, awkward silence completely fills the room, leaving Rain totally shocked when nobody speaks up. The kind Nanaura gently explains that these poor kids have experienced far too much trauma and deception to easily trust a wealthy noble. But Rain boasts he is the absolute master of coaching children. Rain confidently orders Leah to run straight to the kitchen and bring back a massive, overflowing tray of freshly baked, premium chocolate chip cookies. He proudly tells the suspicious kids that these are the greatest sweets in the world, handing one directly to a hesitant little girl. The brave little girl cautiously takes a tiny bite, and she instantly starts munching on it with so much pure, wild, uncontrollable excitement that her giant glowing eyes quickly catch the attention of everyone else in the room. The rest of the starving children completely lose their minds, instantly breaking their quiet, frozen formation as they frantically swarm the giant silver pastry tray to aggressively grab their own delicious treats. Giggling happily, Rain casually announces with a mischievous grin that it is finally time for them to play an incredibly exciting game of truth or dare. A remarkably cute little girl named Mia slowly steps forward from the crowd, bravely revealing in a quiet voice that her original home is located in a small, peaceful village far to the east called Glen. Rain pats Mia's head, praising her bravery, and orders Ira to arrange an escort to take the children home. He realizes he needs to find a trustworthy nanny to care for them, but first decides to check if there is any hidden talent left among the remaining girls. Rain boots up his system interface, activating his scanning skill to thoroughly analyze the hidden stats of every orphan in the room. He sighs in deep disappointment as they all appear completely ordinary, until his eyes suddenly lock onto a quiet red-haired girl. Rain's jaw drops to the floor as he stares at the screen in pure disbelief. This little redhead, named Dahlia, surprisingly possesses mind-blowing combat attributes almost identical to his overpowered maid, Leah. He smirks wickedly, realizing he just unlocked a jackpot SSR character to end the season. Rain and his heavily armed elite royal guards hurry down into the deep, damp, freezing palace dungeon, only to find the bandit leader's body already lying completely stiff and cold on the dirty stone floor. Rosalind explains with a sigh that a terrified guard discovered the messy corpse while merely trying to bring the helpless prisoner a fresh cup of clean water. Rain and his heavily armed elite royal guards hurry down into the deep, damp, freezing palace dungeon, only to find the bandit leader's body already lying completely stiff and cold on the dirty stone floor. Rosalind explains with a sigh that a terrified guard discovered the messy corpse while merely trying to bring the helpless prisoner a fresh cup of clean water. Knox explains his dark suspicion that the bandit's sudden death was actually meant to trigger a forbidden, dangerous sacrificial spell, realizing they are dealing with a creepy entity. Priscilla strictly orders Nox to keep her little brother Rain safe from harm at all costs. Duke Oscar is having the time of his life in his bedroom when his personal guard suddenly interrupts the fun. The guard nervously announces that the corrupt Eldrick has just arrived at the estate. Claiming he has some incredibly critical and urgent matters to discuss with the Duke immediately. Thinking Eldrick brought him another beautiful batch of enslaved girls, the excited Oscar rushes straight to his private study to meet his old partner. However, instead of bringing gifts, Eldrick completely breaks the Duke's greedy heart by delivering a massive piece of catastrophic bad news. Eldrick explains that the Grand Duke's son, Rain, has completely chased him out of the city like a common dog. This means Oscar will no longer receive any beautiful goods, leaving the greedy Duke extremely agitated and wondering why the wealthy Edgar family abandoned him so brutally without any warning. Eldrick calls Rain an overconfident young lord who foolishly thinks he has everything under control, admitting that he personally snuck back into the city dungeon last night to successfully silence the bandit leader before the smart kid could discover their highly illegal cross-border slave trading ring. Duke Oscar immediately experiences a massive panic attack, thoroughly understanding that if the Supreme Emperor eventually discovers these unlawful atrocities, his entire life is completely forfeited. Desperately trembling and gasping for survival, he frantically begs the sinister butler to formulate an extraordinarily radical, bloody master plan to permanently secure their vulnerable positions. Eldrick sinisterly reveals that the magnificent municipal reservoir barrier is successfully completed, suggesting they completely sabotage this architecture to comprehensively submerge the entire lower residential metropolitan district. This catastrophic emergency will instantly terminate Rain, utterly obliterate the settlement, and seamlessly allow Oscar's military regiments to strategically occupy the ruined territory. The aristocratic Duke stands completely paralyzed, overwhelmingly terrified of assassinating the Grand Duke's precious lineage. But Eldrick repeatedly guarantees uncompromised access to exceptional beauties once they successfully control the administrative region, enticed by this luxurious, tempting compensation. The corrupt nobleman unconditionally agrees to aggressively prosecute this catastrophic engineering conspiracy. Back inside his sunny administrative office, Rain is patiently hosting the mysterious redhead orphan, Alia, desperately trying every clever psychological trick just to get her to say a single word. Rain enthusiastically keeps feeding her delicious chocolate chip cookies, but the deeply traumatized girl remains completely mute, leaving Rain totally frustrated and wondering how to cure her. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door is violently kicked wide open as Lillian rushes in completely out of breath, hysterically shouting that the historical city dam is officially and fully finished. Rain is absolutely thrilled to finally receive some fantastic and encouraging news after days of constant mental stress. He immediately orders Leah to summon all local elven leaders and prominent nobles to the grand construction site, excited to show them that their medieval city has officially entered a magnificent, brand new civilization era. Rain tries incredibly hard to convince the mute redhead girl to join the grand event, promising her endless sweet pastries, but she remains completely silent, deciding to leave her behind with the maids. Rain confidently arrives at the massive concrete reservoir structure with his elite and highly loyal royal entourage. The beautiful elven queen immediately expresses her deep, genuine skepticism regarding the overall structural durability of this giant stone wall. Rain casually chuckles, telling the nervous lady she has absolutely zero reasons to worry because his advanced engineering team followed his personal, extraordinarily strict guidance so perfectly. Selena proudly reports they successfully installed 3 massive, heavily reinforced stone slabs directly at the main outlet channel. She proudly notes that an intricate, heavy iron gear system has been successfully completed to safely regulate the intense fluid velocity and prevent the reservoir from suddenly losing control at any unexpected moment. Rain happily invites his honorable royal guests to perform the inaugural opening of the historic floodgates together. He vividly paints a beautiful picture, explaining how the trapped water will smoothly flow downstream, perfectly transforming all dry farmlands below into a prosperous, beautifully irrigated, and incredibly wealthy agricultural paradise. Priscilla still deeply worries about gambling with innocent human lives, but Rain firmly reassures everyone that his scientific design underwent rigorous experiments. The confident leaders step forward together, raising their hands onto the control mechanism, fully prepared and ready to initiate the entire concrete system right now. Suddenly, the exiled former Lord, Aldrich, dramatically materializes on the high cliffs right above them with his usual incredibly annoying, deeply punchable villain smile. Aldrich proudly brags that he recently joined the hostile Orvis Empire, successfully obtaining a fancy new noble title just to secure his ultimate, sweet revenge. Rain instantly bursts out laughing, openly mocking Aldrich for being completely brain-dead by foolishly attempting to fight an entire army alone. Aldrich confidently sneers back, revealing he strategically positioned a squad of supreme water mages upstream, ready to unleash a catastrophic elemental magic spell to destroy this proud dam. Aldrich sinisterly explains that once this fragile stone barrier is completely shattered, the massive raging floodwaters will instantly drown the entire city, automatically sending Rain and all his beloved citizens straight to hell. Aldrich loudly celebrates the intense, satisfying horror appearing on the beautiful ladies' frightened faces. The Elven Queen panics, while an enraged Priscilla fiercely steps forward, warning the traitor that she will relentlessly hunt him down to the absolute ends of the earth if he dare ruin her precious BR. Others' hard work. Aldrich merely laughs out loud, aggressively slamming his magic staff down. Aldrich successfully activates the forbidden magic, instantly unleashing a massive, terrifying wall of high-pressure water directly toward the structure. The Elven Queen completely loses her mind, frantically screaming that they must evacuate the entire area immediately before the terrifying and massive disaster completely crushes them all alive. Looking at the apocalyptic tidal wave, Rain remains incredibly calm, strictly telling the frightened queen to stop panicking. Rain proudly boasts that his modern security countermeasures are completely flawless, confident that no matter how scary this artificial flood appears, his glorious dam will stand perfectly still forever. Rain casually steps forward and pulls the dam's main lever, instantly releasing a monstrous torrent of roaring water. Aldrich just laughs like a complete lunatic, openly mocking this modern engineering marvel. However, the violent water pressure immediately smashes the very first stone slab into tiny pieces, sending the nearby Elven Queen into pure panic. The terrified Elven Queen screams that they must evacuate the area immediately before getting swallowed by the massive, oncoming flood. Priscilla also begs Ryan to run for his life, but our stubborn boy stays firmly in his spot. He confidently claims this tiny puddle isn't nearly enough to bring his glorious industrial masterpiece down. Our protagonist openly mocks Eldritch's pathetic magic, asking the old wizard if that weak attack is truly the best his ancient powers can do. More than happy to oblige, Eldritch furiously unleashes a massive wave of extra magical energy into the raging current, determined to drown our hero's annoying arrogance once and for all. The insane water pressure rushes so fiercely that the heavy stone foundation begins cracking open under the intense stress. Rain coolly tells his companions that it is not time to panic just yet. Suddenly, the overwhelming velocity completely obliterates the second protective slab, triggering another wave of pure horror from his female friends. Aldrich keeps blasting the structure with pure malice to guarantee a catastrophic failure for this new era, while the ladies are hyperventilating. The final stone slab gets completely shattered to pieces, yet our clever protagonist is actually smiling because everything is finally going down exactly the way his brilliant tactical mind intended from the beginning. Right as the destruction peaks, the internal gears deep underneath the dam shift directions completely automatically. The massive overflow of water is instantly rerouted through a hidden secondary outlet, smoothly guiding the raging current straight into the dry farmlands, leaving the entire stunned audience completely speechless with awe at this automated technology. Rain flashes a wicked grin and thanks the villain for providing such generous, free labor for his kingdom. He explains that wasting his own magician's precious mana on irrigation would be stupid when a sucker can do it for nothing. This grand dam utilizes natural hydraulic kinetic force to nourish the entire kingdom's agricultural fields. Eldritch realizes his ultimate plan has been used against him and frantically prepares to make his escape from the facility. However, Rain just laughs out loud, reminding the fleeing wizard that this expanding industrial city is definitely not a free theme. park that anyone can just waltz out of so damn freely whenever they want. Selena gladly steps up to execute the order, conjuring a massive lightning bolt that immediately blasts the fleeing villain right out of the sky, with the threat successfully neutralized. Our capitalist hero turns back to the ladies, walking into the palace to start their highly anticipated and deeply critical commercial. Investment talks right away. Priscilla eagerly asks how they should invest to achieve true economic prosperity across the barren desert, rejecting standard primitive caravans or high highway tolls that cause bitter resentment. Rain proudly unveils his real capitalistic masterstroke. He plans to construct a massive luxury service community that forces passing travelers to spend every single penny inside. Rain brings the ladies out to the main highway connecting the industrial city directly to the border fortress. He points at a prime piece of real estate that used to house a gambling den. Pitching his next bold commercial concept, he guarantees passing merchant caravans will stop to drop serious cash if they build a service hub right here. The Elven Queen stares at the pile of debris, completely skeptical about this weird proposal. She demands to know why a rest stop would survive when the previous business failed miserably. While she stands there looking totally speechless, Rain secretly hides the hilarious fact that he was the exact guy who ordered the destruction of that building. Rain casually blames the previous owner's terrible management while reassuring the ladies that his own team can do much better. Our favorite capitalist confidently rolls out a detailed modern blueprint. He explains that this comprehensive facility will integrate comfortable rest quarters, supply shops, stable services, and highly profitable trading stations for traveling merchants. This blueprint outlines a massive commercial center designed to streamline supplies, facilitate trade, and boost communication among weary travelers. The Elven Queen reluctantly admits that this is actually an exceptionally brilliant idea. Rain explains that since heavy caravan traffic passes through daily, the location will naturally attract people from all over the magical region. This massive influx of travelers will generate huge local consumption and heavily stimulate surrounding industries. When the Queen asks what the elves actually gain from this human project, Rain proudly explains that their severe food shortage problem will be solved forever by turning this hub into a massive, highly efficient grain distribution center. With multiple supply caravans passing through the territory daily, the elves can easily purchase unlimited agricultural products to sustain their population. Rain explains that this strategic partnership will smoothly lead the entire elven race toward unparalleled economic prosperity. After listening to his elaborate sales pitch, the Queen finally decides to trust his grand industrial vision. The Queen promises absolute support if this highway truly brings endless food supplies. Ready to proceed, she casually drops a staggering 150,000 gold coins to test the waters. Rain is absolutely blown away by the unexpected numbers, finally understanding what true old money wealth actually feels like in this magical world. Our happy entrepreneur celebrates catching a massive whale who can single-handedly finance his entire industrial revolution, returning straight to his private office. He tells Leah that the deal went perfectly. Leah praises his incredible wisdom. But Rain notes they now face a classic capitalistic challenge, which is creative corporate fund management. They need to figure out financial logistics without getting ripped off by local tax collectors. Rain immediately tells Leah to summon their top lightning witch for an urgent meeting. Selena enters the room with her usual dark aura. Our protagonist looks at her and casually asks if she knows how to creatively cook the financial books. The deadly midge looks completely blank, admitting she only understands lethal dark curses and offensive magic. Rain then turns to young Armando, but the boy is equally clueless about corporate math. Our genius inventor almost faints, realizing his smartest court members have absolutely no idea how to perform basic, high-level financial fraud for him. Rain complains that spending every single coin on construction without keeping a secret reserve fund for emergencies is terrible business strategy. Leah offers a practical solution, suggesting they ask Priscilla for help. She points out that Priscilla's rich territory is packed with brilliant merchant families who thoroughly understand the art of creative accounting. Rain immediately rejects the idea because tax evasion requires absolute and questionable trust from his inner circle. He orders his guards to bring every single local merchant to the castle instead. Meanwhile, a gorgeous, mysterious woman arrives at the city gates, determined to negotiate a dangerous deal with our unyielding and stubborn lord. This beautiful newcomer is on a critical rescue mission to save her captive father from prison.